Chapter 2574, Heavy Casualties. The Four Symbols Alliance did not interfere with the battle. They completely detached themselves from it. The so-called guards that the Four Symbols Alliance assigned to the young Star Lord were immediately forced into a retreat without any support. They suffered injuries and casualties. The Infinite Primes who fled from the eastern fortress of the Pingtian Empire were like a joke before Jian Chen's laws of space. They were hunted down one by one, dying to Jian Chen's sword. Although primordial realm experts were very difficult to kill due to their various methods of escape, the difference in strength was just too great. Even with all their various methods of escape, they felt powerless. Not to mention that they were facing more than just Jian Chen, someone who could crush them in battles alone, but they were also facing his laws of space. The battle of the primordial realm near the eastern fortress ended. The battle between the godhood cultivators continued with great intensity. The battle between several tens of thousand godhood cultivators of the Tian Yuan clan and Four Symbols Alliance would not end in a short amount of time. Even though the Tian Yuan clan was the weaker side in terms of godhood cultivators, where they did not have as many god kings as the Four Symbols Alliance, they gained the upper hand thanks to the primordial realm Heya, who constantly slaughtered the god kings. Jian Chen did not interfere with the battle between the godhood experts. He immediately vanished. Two streaks of light shot over a desert 1,000,000 kilometers to the west of the Pingtian Empire. They moved extremely quickly, vanishing in an instant. There were two people within the light. They both gave off the presences of primordial realm experts. Their energy surged as they were wrapped in the power of laws. One of them fled as the other pursued. They traveled further and further away from the Pingtian Empire. The person in pursuit was Protector Shui of the Tian Yuan clan. His white robes were covered with blood. Who knows whether it came from his allies or enemies? The person fleeing was the fifth heavenly layer Infinite Prime from the Four Symbols Alliance. He comprehended the laws of wind, so he possessed speed greater than those at the same cultivation level. As a result, even though he was weaker than Protector Shui was unable to catch up to him if he wanted to flee. The distance between them grew wider and wider. You're called Protector Shui, right? Save your energy. Although you're more powerful than me, you're nowhere close to me in terms of speed. Look, I haven't even used a secret technique, yet you still can't catch up to me. If I used a secret technique, do you believe that you wouldn't be able to see my shadow? Suddenly, the fleeing primordial realm expert sneered complacently. Protector Shui remained silent as he continued his pursuit. His expression was rather ugly. They grew further and further apart. He indeed could not catch up to him. After all, those who comprehended the laws of wind always possessed an advantage in terms of speed. At this moment, Protector Shui's eyes suddenly narrowed. He stared ahead in delight and stopped chasing. Why aren't you chasing anymore, Protector Shui? Is it because the fleeing primordial realm expert scoffed, but he stopped suddenly. His face was filled with surprise. Jian Chen appeared before him silently, standing in the air and blocking his path. The laws of space, the fleeing Infinite Prime gulped with some difficulty. He was extremely fast with his laws of wind, much faster than people at the same level of cultivation as him. However, he was not faster than those with the laws of space. Jian Chen struck out. He gripped the 9-star sword of heavenly ways and swung down mercilessly. With just a single strike, he cut through all the defenses of the fifth heavenly layer Infinite Prime, stabbing into his head and killing him. Patriarch. Protector Shui arrived before Jian Chen. He clasped his fist in respect. Return and provide support to the other protectors. Jian Chen nodded. He stowed the primordial realm expert's corpse away and then his sword. Afterwards, he grabbed Protector Shui by the shoulder, and they vanished. The next moment, Jian Chen took Protector Shui back to the battlefield set near the western fortress. The Four Symbols Alliance had completely lost the upper hand there. They were forced into a constant retreat. Only 3 infinite primes remained. They were all early or mid-infinite primes. There was not a single late infinite prime among them. Currently, they were making their final desperate struggles in the encirclement led by Protector Qi and the 6 other protectors of the Tian Yuan clan. Swish! Protector Shui set off. As soon as he returned, he immediately entered the battle. Now that a 7th heavenly layer infinite prime had joined the fight, the 3 primordial realm experts of the 4 Symbols Alliance who were making their final struggle became even more powerless. They were slain very soon, and the corpses naturally ended up in Jian Chen's hands. Very soon, the battle ended. This time, all the godhood experts and infinite primes who attacked the Pingtian Empire were slain. Not a single one was left alive. The young Star Lord's campaign against the Pingtian Empire ended in complete failure. After the battle ended, Jian Chen left behind a few people to clean up the battlefield and deal with the aftermath. He himself returned to the Dong'an province with several tens of thousands of cultivators of the Tian Yuan clan. Patriarch, we've completed the head count. This time, a total of around 68,000 cultivators from the Tian Yuan clan took part in the battle. Less than 40,000 returned alive. We've lost close to 30,000 people in this battle. Shiyu held a battle report and explained to Jian Chen in the full discussion hall of the Tian Yuan clan. The atmosphere was rather heavy. The upper echelon in the discussion hall became pained when they heard the number. The Tian Yuan clan had lost close to 30,000 people, which was nothing compared to the millions that the Pingtian Empire had lost. However, these cultivators were all handpicked. They were elites and could not be compared to regular soldiers. Jian Chen just sat on the throne. He did not show any pain or sorrow when he heard the number. He said, for a clan to thrive, it needs to be baptized with many difficult tests and wars. The battle today is only the first step. We will go through many more in the future. Jian Chen understood that the Tian Yuan clan was nowhere close to being the 4 Symbols Alliance's opponent in terms of strength. If he had not killed off over half of the primordial realm experts with lightning speed, as well as all the cultivators from the southern fortress to decrease the difference, the Tian Yuan clan would definitely suffer defeat. The Patriarch is right. There is no organization or clan that does not develop through various tests of life and death across the entire cloud plane. I completely agree with the Patriarch. Protector Qi stood up and clasped his hands at Jian Chen. After that, he hesitated a little. However, in the end, he still said, there's just something that has raised my doubts. Although the infinite primes we faced this time carried a very unfamiliar flag, I do know their identities a little, as I've met with them several times in the past. They're all members of the 4 Symbols Alliance. May I ask why the people of the 4 Symbols Alliance have turned against us? What? They're from the 4 Symbols Alliance. Impossible, hasn't the 4 Symbols Alliance always been very friendly with the Tian Yuan clan? Why have they suddenly attacked us? After hearing Protector Qi's words, many people were surprised in the discussion hall. The entire place descended into a ruckus at that moment. Even Shiyu's complexion became extremely ugly. Chapter 2575, Unique Constitutions. The Tian Yuan clan held a nervous and stern meeting about the battle this time. As all of that happened, the young Star Lord unleashed his wrath in the luxurious residence that the 4 Symbols Alliance had specially prepared for him in the distant headquarters of the 4 Symbols Alliance. Trash. Useless trash. You're all useless trash. There were 3 5th heavenly layer chaotic primes and 2 4th heavenly layer chaotic primes, 5 chaotic primes in total, and you couldn't even deal with an old woman. I would give it to you if her cultivation was far beyond yours, but she was only a 5th heavenly layer chaotic prime as well. There were so many of you, yet you couldn't even defeat an opponent at the same level of cultivation as you. This is the first time I've seen trash as useless as you. A clamor rang out in the residence. The young Star Lord was furious, smashing the decor in the place one after another. He swore at the 4 great elders standing there, utterly cursing the four authoritative Great Elders of the Four Symbols Alliance. The four Great Elders said nothing. They chose to remain silent as they faced the furious young Star Lord. However, it was possible to tell from their sunken faces that they were not as peaceful inside as they seemed. As a matter of fact, a sliver of disgust and fury would flash through their eyes. This was what they felt towards the young Star Lord. The four of them were precious existences in the Four Symbols Alliance. They were only below the five ancestors. Even the five ancestors would not treat them like this, so they felt extremely furious now that the young Star Lord insulted them like this. Of course, they dared not show this fury. After all this cursing, the young Star Lord began to feel that it was pointless, so he gradually calmed down. He stood with his hands behind his back. He was arrogant and cold as he asked, "Who else do we have? Aside from the four of us, the others have all fallen in battle." Even Jean Li died to Su Ran's hands, a great elder said after a moment of silence. What? They've all fallen in battle. The young Star Lord's face changed. His handsome face darkened in anger. He had been insulted by the Tian Yuan clan at first. Afterwards, he gained reinforcements from the Four Symbols Alliance and led a group of experts to attack the Pingtian Empire in an aggressive manner. Originally, he wanted to make his way into the territory of the Pingtian Empire bit by bit with overwhelming strength, slowly approaching the Tian Yuan clan such that their patriarch, Jian Chen, could only watch them lose their territory while being unable to do anything. He wanted Jian Chen to regret what he did in the past. However, he had never thought that the group of experts he had led with lofty aspirations would be completely destroyed in the end. The young Star Lord immediately felt like his face was burning. He felt utterly ashamed. This was just too humiliating to his great pride and extraordinary identity. The Tian Yuan clan. The Tian Yuan clan. The young Star Lord was now utterly pale from fury. His anger and killing intent towards Jian Chen could no longer increase anymore. This was the first time he had been humiliated since birth. He could not endure it. Afterwards, the young Star Lord went to find the five ancestors of the Four Symbols Alliance, directly demanding them to destroy the Tian Yuan clan. He could no longer endure the thought of having the Tian Yuan clan exist on the cloud plane for another day. At the same time, he thought about how Jian Chen, who had tossed him out of the clan before, was probably scoffing and sneering away at him. The five ancestors of the Four Symbols Alliance furrowed their brows after receiving the young Star Lord's request. They felt rather pained. The conflict between the young Star Lord and the Tian Yuan clan was a matter that was extremely difficult to deal with. They needed to be careful with every step that they took, as even the slightest of negligence could cost the entire Four Symbols Alliance. At this moment, a middle-aged Infinite Prime walked in. He said politely, "Ancestors, we've discovered that a large number of scouts from the Righteous Alliance have infiltrated our southern region. Has the Righteous Alliance finally come?" The Gentle Breeze ancestor let out a long sigh. He said, "The Righteous Alliance is currently being led by the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. The Peak Lord once took great care of the Tian Yuan clan, so we can be certain that if we take action, the Righteous Alliance definitely will not just stand by. That's right, we can't do anything. Otherwise, it's extremely likely that the consequences will become unmanageable. We're still not the Righteous Alliance's opponent," said Zheng Hu. The five of them chimed in on one another, purposefully making the matter seem very severe. They were unwilling to personally deal with the Tian Yuan clan. Then how should we deal with the Tian Yuan clan? The young Star Lord's expression was extremely ugly. "We can't rush this matter. We need to come up with a long-term plan," said the Gentle Breeze ancestor, delaying the whole matter altogether. The young Star Lord returned to his residence with a sunken face. None of the peak experts of the Four Symbols Alliance were willing to take action, so there was nothing he could do to the Tian Yuan clan. After all, he had only brought a ninth heavenly layer Infinite Prime with him this time. That was not enough to deal with the Tian Yuan clan. Mu Lin, do you have any method of contacting the Star Brilliance plane so that they can send some people over? Asked the young Star Lord. Young Master, Master gave strict orders that this trip to the Cloud Plane is only training for the young Master. If we call for experts of the Star Brilliance plane, that will probably break the rules of the training. The consequences will be severe if we anger Master, Mu Lin said carefully. He knew that the young Star Lord was very lustful, so he had purposely gotten the Four Symbols Alliance to send some women over. They were all dressed beautifully to serve the young Star Lord and ease his anger. Who are these people? Get out of here, all of you, you ordinary women. The young Star Lord was already angered, so he was in no mood to admire them. Moreover, he had seen great beauties already. Regular women could no longer interest him, so he chased them all out. If the young master likes women, I do have two people in mind. At this moment, a voice rang out in the head of Mu Lin. It came from one of the great elders responsible for the young Star Lord's safety. Who are they? Mu Lin immediately asked. The two princesses of the Xiandao Empire in the northern region. Not only are they absolutely alluring, but they possess the heavenly yin body and the innate body of ways as well. The heavenly yin body and the innate body of ways. That's rather rare constitutions in the saints' world. In particular, the heavenly yin body can lead to unimaginable benefits once someone joins with them. The young master will definitely like them. Mu Lin's eyes immediately lit up and asked for their exact location. Chapter 2576, Tong Tian's visit. Afterwards, Mu Lin directly made his way to the northern region of the Cloud Plain. The four great elders gathered together after he left. They stared in the direction that Mu Lin had traveled off into as they discussed among themselves secretly. The northern region is the Righteous Alliance's territory. Now that the young Star Lord's bodyguard has gone there like that, do you think there will be conflict with the Righteous Alliance? Conflict will be good. Isn't that what our Four Symbols Alliance wants? However, since he is the bodyguard of the young Star Lord, the Righteous Alliance probably won't dare to do anything to him. Whatever. All we need to do is plant a seed of grievance in the Righteous Alliance and let it sprout slowly. I heard the Xiandao Empire's two princesses are engaged to two peak clans in the central region. Under the lead of the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, the ancestors of the Righteous Alliance gathered together for a secret discussion. Now, we're basically certain that the foster son of the Nine Brilliant Star Lord, the young Star Lord, has come to the Cloud Plain, and the Four Symbols Alliance basically wants to ally themselves with him, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak said sternly. The Four Symbols Alliance had not made the young Star Lord's presence public, and extremely few people knew about the matter. However, the Righteous Alliance was just too developed. They had people who had infiltrated the upper echelon of the Four Symbols Alliance, so they received the most recent news very soon. That's bad. Even if the young Star Lord has only come to the Cloud Plain for training, and he has brought next to no experts with him, his identity is still there. The Four Symbols Alliance clearly wants to use him against us. The ancestor of the cosmic sect, Zhou Zhidao, stroked his long beard and let out a long sigh. The ancestor of the Tong family, Tong Wuming, the ancestor of the God's Fallen clan, Luo Mantian, and Lai Yen Wuji from the Fire God clan frowned as well. If the Four Symbols Alliance allied themselves with the young Star Lord, it would be a great calamity for their Righteous Alliance. Although the young Star Lord did not possess particularly great power as an individual, his special and exalted status gave him great power. If he wanted to assist the Four Symbols Alliance, it would not be something that their Righteous Alliance could handle. We only have one path ahead of us now that everything is like this, and that's the Tian Yuan clan. The ancestor of the Tong family, Tong Wuming, seemed extremely old. His face was riddled with wrinkles as he squinted his eyes. His gaze was deep. The heavenly palace of Bisheng is behind the Tian Yuan clan, and their first majesty is a supreme expert who has stunned the saints' world by hunting down the heaven-splitting ancestor. They can indeed face the organization behind the young Star Lord. However, the Tian Yuan clan has always been unwilling to have anything to do with us and the Four Symbols Alliance. I think it will be rather difficult for us to ally with the Tian Yuan clan, said the ancestor of the Fire God clan, Lian Wuji, in thought. He wore fire-red robes as his long, scarlet hair danced about like a ball of flames. Times have changed. Ming Dong is no longer present, and the divine general from the divine palace of Bisheng has left as well. The Tian Yuan clan no longer possesses as great a deterrence towards the Four Symbols Alliance as in the past. I believe the Tian Yuan clan needs us, said the ancestor of the cosmic sect, Zhou Zhidao. I have a great-grandson who just happens to have some ties with Jian Chen. Why don't I let this great-grandson of mine pay a visit to the Tian Yuan clan and see what Jian Chen thinks? Tong Wuming said. That would be perfect. The news of the war that the Ping Tian Empire experienced spread across all 5 regions of the Cloud Plain in just a day. It caused quite the disturbance. At the same time, the mysterious organization that had a 9-starred banner became the center of attention of all organizations on the Cloud Plain as well. Conversations and discussions about this mysterious organization could basically be heard everywhere. Only a handful of peak organizations knew exactly what the mysterious organization was. Until they distributed the news, the organizations of lower status would naturally have no idea. I wonder where these people who provoked the Tian Yuan clan came from. Don't they know that even the 2 great alliances on the Cloud Plain do not dare to provoke the Tian Yuan clan? There definitely won't be a good outcome for them since they have provoked the Tian Yuan clan. Let's just wait and see. This organization with 9 stars will definitely be in for trouble. The most recent news is that the Tian Yuan clan killed one of the 5 chaotic primes from the organization on the spot. What? Even an expert like a chaotic prime died? Heavens! Now that I think about our mountain range sect, our most powerful ancestor is only an infinite prime. He's nowhere close to being a chaotic prime. The Tian Yuan clan really is powerful. Just as these people discussed about the Tian Yuan clan and the mysterious organization enthusiastically, a special guest arrived in the Dong'an province of the Ping Tian Empire. He was a handsome young man with a striking appearance. He wore luxurious, white robes as he held a folding fan. He bore an impudent smile on his face as he strolled through the busy streets, constantly letting out sighs of amazement. This young man was the young master who had once saved Jian Chen back in the dwelling of God King Duanmu, Tong Tian. A middle-aged man in robes followed Tong Tian closely. Even though he was only a god king, his presence was much more powerful than most late god kings. This middle-aged man was Tong Tian's personal bodyguard, Qin Zheng. When I think of the past, Brother Jian Chen had still been risking his life to fight for the resources left behind by a god king, but now, his status has become so great. The clan he founded has single-handedly become renowned across the entire Cloud Plain, a target for our ancestor to ally with. Then you look at me. I haven't changed much at all compared to when I first met Jian Chen. Uncle Qin, why do you think that people can be so different? Tong Tian swung his fan. He seemed like a careless fool, as if he had been devastated. No matter how you put it, I am the prodigy with the greatest talent in the past 100,000 years in the Tong family's history. However, once you compare me to Jian Chen, the gap is just far too shocking. Tong Tian sighed gently. He was extremely hurt. Young master, if you work hard on cultivation, you might not be able to catch up to the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, but you will be able to surpass many others. It's extremely likely for you to make it onto the God King's throne in the future, said Qin Jing encouragingly. Tong Tian was unaffected. The God King's throne? So what? It's just an opportunity for those God Kings who like to show off to make a name for themselves. Look at Brother Jian Chen. He never attempted the God King's throne, but he killed many Supreme God Kings when he was a God King. It's said that when half of the Supreme God Kings on the God King's throne vanished without a trace, it was directly related to brother Jian Chen as well. Very soon, Tong Tian and Qin Zhang arrived at the Tian Yuan clan. They stated their identity and intentions, and a guard immediately passed the message on. As soon as Jian Chen learnt that Tong Tian had come to visit, he sent people to bring him to where he resided. Jian Chen had always felt grateful towards Tong Tian. When he was still weak and faced life-threatening danger in God King Duanmu's dwelling in the past, it was Tong Tian's sudden appearance that saved him in an overwhelming manner. He even gave him a precious God-tier pill, allowing him to heal from his heavy wounds in an extremely short amount of time. As a result, Tong Tian had basically saved Jian Chen's life. They would naturally have a conversation when they met. After a simple greeting and some talk, Tong Tian directly approached the main reason for why he had come. He mentioned that the Righteous Alliance wanted to ally themselves with the Tian Yuan clan. Jian Chen had already guessed Tong Tian's intentions, so he was not surprised at all. However, he did not agree. He shook his head gently and said, "Brother Tong Tian, I'll be frank. If your Righteous Alliance allies with our Tian Yuan clan, it will probably only be detrimental for you. There won't be any benefits at all." Chapter 2577, The Xiandao Empire's Crisis. There won't be any benefits at all. Brother Jian Chen, may I ask why you say that? Tong Tian was confused. Jian Chen said after some thought, "If I've guessed correctly, your Righteous Alliance should already know that the Four Symbols Alliance has begun to rope in the young Star Lord. As the only child of the 9 brilliant Star Lord, the young Star Lord holds extremely great power. The ancestors of your Righteous Alliance are worried that the young Star Lord will assist the Four Symbols Alliance against you, so they thought of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng in hopes of using the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng against the young Star Lord when the day comes. That's a good idea, except you overestimate me far too much. I cannot make the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng step in with my power alone. All I can do is protect myself. As a result, if your Righteous Alliance gets involved, it's not necessarily a good thing for you." Jian Chen directly explained everything. Although he could directly declare war on the Four Symbols Alliance with the support of the Righteous Alliance, or even destroy them in a single stroke, there really was no benefit for the Righteous Alliance in doing so. If the Righteous Alliance did not take part, they would not offend the young Star Lord, and the young Star Lord would not resent the Righteous Alliance. However, once they did take part, they would really be falling out with the young Star Lord. By then, even if the Four Symbols Alliance was destroyed, the Righteous Alliance would have to face the retaliation of the young Star Lord. The Righteous Alliance definitely could not deal with the retaliation of the young Star Lord. With Jian Chen's explanation, Tong Tian also understood the connections involved. He could not help but frown. He also came to a certain understanding that perhaps the Tian Yuan clan's relationship with the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng was not as sturdy as his ancestor believed it to be. Jian Chen could use his merit from returning the Inata Tower to protect the Tian Yuan clan, but he definitely would not be able to protect the Righteous Alliance. Meanwhile, at the majestic imperial palace of the Xiandao Empire that was enveloped by a powerful formation, only a few gates were left uncovered, allowing officials to move in and out. However, at this moment, a figure flew over with extremely great speed. His energy surged as he made the wind and clouds churn. His tremendous presence enveloped the entire imperial palace. This was an infinite prime. His level of cultivation was so great, having reached the 9th heavenly layer. As soon as he arrived, he alarmed the ancestors of the Xiandao Empire. Tian Shang of the 3 ancestors of the Xiandao Empire opened her eyes in the forbidden grounds of the imperial palace. She stared outside sternly. The person who had come had a presence so tremendous that it had reached the 9th heavenly layer of infinite prime. An expert like that could crush the entire Xiandao Empire. He's actually come right to the imperial palace. Who is he? Tian Shuang thought before appearing outside with a flash. The 2 other infinite primes of the Xiandao Empire emerged from seclusion at the same time as well. They planned on going out and receiving him personally. The three ancestors of the Xiandao Empire dared not be careless now that a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime had personally come. Boom! However, at this moment, a deafening rumble rang out. The barrier around the imperial palace shook violently. It rapidly dimmed before shattering easily despite being the most powerful formation in the entire empire. As soon as the person approached the imperial palace, they struck out, destroying their protective formation with a single strike. He did not try to talk to them at all. The expressions of Tian Shuang and the two other ancestors, who had originally planned on greeting him politely, immediately changed. He had expressed that he had come with ill intentions. Please stop. May I ask how our Xiandao Empire has offended you and made you so angry? You destroyed the formation of our imperial palace as soon as you arrived. Tian Shuang called out, flying into the sky with the two other primordial realm experts of the Xiandao Empire. At this moment, the three of them saw the person in question. He was an old man who seemed extremely ordinary, but his presence was so powerful that it was enough to cause the three of them to shiver. A ninth heavenly layer infinite prime was like a mountain to the three ancestors of the Xiandao Empire, who were at the fourth heavenly layer at most. It was suffocating as they faced him. The old man was the young Star Lord's bodyguard, Mu Lin. Mu Lin stood in the sky. He had suffered at the hands of the Tian Yuan clan before and had also returned in defeat during the young Star Lord's attack on the Pingtian Empire. As a result, he felt extremely aggrieved. Now that he faced Tian Shuang and the others who were weaker than him, he finally seemed to regain his confidence. He used his powerful presence to envelope the three of them and coldly said, "Where are the people in possession of the innate body of ways and the heavenly yin body? Immediately summon them so that they can return with me and serve the young Star Lord." The expression of the three immediately changed with that. They did not know who the young Star Lord was, but since he could make a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime serve him, his identity was definitely extraordinary. He was not an existence that their Xiandao Empire could provoke. Xing'er and Lan'er are already engaged to the young master of the God's Fallen clan, said Tian Shuang. The God's Fallen clan was a peak clan on the Cloud Plain. Now, she could only mention the God's Fallen clan in hopes of scaring him away. However, she did not know that the young Star Lord mentioned by Mu Lin was far greater than she had imagined him to be. The God's Fallen clan. Even they dare to contend for the heavenly yin body and the innate body of ways with the young Star Lord. Mu Lin was filled with contempt as he sneered. Afterwards, he spread his hand, and powerful energy immediately gathered over, condensing into a huge hand that reached towards the imperial palace below. He did not take the three ancestors seriously at all. He could not be bothered to waste words on them anymore, so he directly took action. He had already located the two women among the various halls. Stop! Tian Shang and the two other ancestors of the Xiandao Empire were furious. How could they just watch Mu Lin take people away in such a fearless fashion? The three of them immediately interfered. Even you want to try and stop me? You're looking to die. Mu Lin's eyes turned cold. He used one hand against his opponents, forming a hand seal to use a secret technique, which conjured a starlight that enveloped the three of them. He used his other hand to control the hand of energy, demolishing a hall below with a rumble. He grabbed Xing'er and Lan'er who were cultivating. Tian Shuang and the two other old men of the Xiandao Empire were repelled by Mu Ling's secret technique. They became covered with blood, injured. Out of the three of them, the most powerful, Tian Shuang, was only a fourth heavenly layer infinite prime. A huge difference existed between them and Mu Lin, who had reached the ninth heavenly layer. They really are great beauties. The young Star Lord will definitely like them. Mu Lin studied Xing'er and Lan'er and nodded in satisfaction. Afterwards, he looked at Tian Shuang and the others and killing intent shone in his eyes. Your northern region seems to stand on the side of the righteous alliance. Since that's the case, I can't spare you. With that, Mu Lin struck out once again, planning on killing the three of them. The expressions of the three ancestors of the Xiandao Empire changed drastically. They immediately struck out to receive his attacks that forced them into a battle above the imperial palace of the Xiandao Empire. A battle between primordial realm experts was extremely terrifying. Every time they clashed, the energy shockwaves they erupted with were devastating. Coupled with how they were only a few hundred meters away from the ground, the imperial palace was reduced to ruins in just 2 clashes. Many armored soldiers scurried about for their lives. People were dead and injured. Father! Father! Trapped, Xinger and Lanner called out sorrowfully. They watched the emperor in dragon robes get knocked away by the shockwaves of energy, spurting blood along the way before being buried in the ruins. Spurt! Spurt! At the same time, 2 heads flew high into the sky. Blood dyed the sky red. Aside from Tian Shuang, the ancestors of the Xiandao Empire had all been beheaded and slain by Mu Lin. Meanwhile, Tian Shuang was covered in blood. She was heavily injured. Chapter 2578, The God's Fallen Clan. Looking at her headless and dead companions, Tian Shuang was filled with grief. She glanced at Xinger and Lanner, who had been captured by Mu Lin one last time, before gritting her teeth and fleeing into the distance. None of you can leave today. Mu Lin sneered as he gave off a bloodthirsty killing intent. He had repressed this far too much these days. Now that he finally had an opportunity to vent, he naturally wanted a massacre. Mu Lin immediately transformed into a blur in pursuit. He moved extremely quickly, approaching Tian Shuang in an instant. After all, the difference in strength was just too great. Not only were their battle prowess on completely different levels, but their speeds were as well. How could Tian Shuang escape from Mu Lin as a 4th heavenly layer infinite prime? Tian Shuang's heart suddenly sank. Mu Lin clearly wanted to kill her. But afterwards, determination flooded her eyes. Immediately, faint flames sprang up from her body. At that moment, Tian Shuang burned her essence blood in a frenzy, paying a great price to use a secret technique and immediately travel millions of kilometers away. Mu Lin sneered. He expanded the senses of his soul and easily found Tian Shuang. He shot off like a comet, pursuing with lightning speed. Several million kilometers was extremely distant. It was impossible for regular people to even cross a tenth of that in their lifetime, but to a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime like Mu Lin, it was only a matter of a few dozen seconds. Several million kilometers away, Tian Shuang collapsed in a wasteland powerlessly. She was pale. She had been heavily injured already, and then she burnt her essence blood to use a secret technique. Her vitality was sapped. However, she knew that this was nowhere near enough to escape from the pursuit of a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime. Now that she faced potential death, she dared not rest. She immediately struggled to her feet, and with a flip of her hand, a white, jade disc, 30 centimeters across, appeared in her hand. She took out a 3-colored divine crystal and activated it. Immediately, the disc shone brightly and conjured a map. It gave off a power that could teleport people away. The map actually depicted the 5 regions of the cloud plane. Through the map, it was possible to see where the 5 regions were located, as well as the vast ocean that separated the regions. Tian Shuang pointed at the map, and in the next moment, she vanished after being enveloped by intense light. A teleportation formation disk. She actually has a teleportation formation disk on her. At the same time, Mu Lin stopped in the distance and revealed some slight surprise. Whatever. I'll just spare you for now. He knew that it would be extremely troublesome to chase a primordial realm expert with a teleportation formation disk. Coupled with the fact that he did not want to spend so much time on someone unimportant, he just gave up. He immediately hurried back to the southern region with the two princesses. The God's Fallen clan resided in a great mountain range. It was enveloped by powerful formations, and it seemed like a sea of clouds from the outside. Suddenly, the space near the God's Fallen clan twisted. Tian Shuang fell out from the space there with a pale face. As soon as she arrived, she crushed a jade talisman. Before long, a man appeared from the sea of clouds. He seemed to be in his 30s. He had a resolute demeanor and a striking appearance. The man was an infinite prime. Tian Shuang, what's wrong with you? Who injured you like this? How dare they? The man had originally arrived here joyously, but when he saw how Tian Shuang was all bloodied, his expression immediately changed. He became pained and also felt great fury. A ninth heavenly layer infinite prime destroyed the imperial palace of the Xiandao Empire and abducted Xing'er and Lan'er. Tian Shuang cut right to the chase, explaining everything that happened in just a few sentences. That actually happened? How dare they? Xing'er is the fiancé of one of Great Elder Luo Heping's great-grandsons, while Lan'er is betrothed to young Master Luo Yingjian. Young Master Luo Yingjian is a direct descendant of the ancestor. Who is bold enough to even abduct people of our God-Fallen clan? The man was furious. The God's Fallen clan was a clan that stood at the apex of the cloud plain. They possessed great status. Now that someone had actually come looking for trouble with them, the person in question was basically looking to die. So what if he's a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime? That's just a slightly larger ant in the eyes of our God's Fallen clan. Tian Shuang, don't worry. I will report this to the great elders right now. Here's a God-tier pill. Heal up. With that, the man directly sent a message into the clan. He was a direct descendant of the God's Fallen clan. His name was Luo Fei, and he was an infinite prime, so he possessed quite some status in the God's Fallen clan. As a result, he could directly contact the great elders there. Any person who had the right to become a great elder in the God's Fallen clan was a chaotic prime. Tian Shuang nodded. Her eyes were filled with hatred. The two other ancestors of the Xiandao Empire had died right before her, which filled her with resentment. If she wanted revenge, she had to go to the God's Fallen clan. As a result, she was eager for the God's Fallen clan to send chaotic prime sooner and kill Mu Lin. As Tian Shuang waited anxiously, an old man emerged from the God's Fallen clan very soon. He wore black robes, and his eyebrows were as straight as swords. His eyes shone brightly. He seemed very much like a soldier. However, he kept his presence concealed, so it was impossible to sense this chaotic prime. Greetings to the great elder. Tian Shuang rejoiced inside and immediately greeted him with clasped hands when she saw the old man. She knew the old man. He was one of the great elders of the God's Fallen clan, Luo Heping. One of his great-grandsons had an engagement with Xing'er. Now that Xing'er had been kidnapped, it only made sense for Luo Heping to take action. Luo Heping nodded. He was rather cold, as if he did not take Tian Shuang seriously at all. I've already found this person's traces. Let's go. We'll capture him right now. No matter who he is and what his background is, we cannot spare him for opposing the God's Fallen clan, said Luo Heping as if he looked down on everyone. Indeed, with the God's Fallen clan's strength, they had the right to do so on the Cloud Plain. They were a member of the Righteous Alliance. Although the Righteous Alliance was known as one of the two rulers of the Cloud Plain along with the Four Symbols Alliance, everyone knew that the Righteous Alliance was actually far more powerful than the Four Symbols Alliance. However, just when they were about to set off, Luo Heping's expression changed slightly. A sliver of surprise appeared in his eyes, and his face changed rapidly. He became uncertain. Great Elder, what happened? Tian Shuang was alarmed. She stared at Luo Heping in bewilderment. Luo Heping suddenly fell silent. After quite a while, he said slowly, from today onwards, our God's Fallen clan is annulling our engagements with the two princesses of the Xiandao Empire. With that, Luo Heping turned around and vanished back into the God's Fallen clan. He did not even look back. Tian Shuang was completely stunned. She blanked out. What is this all about? Luo Fei was stunned as well. He felt rather tongue-tied. He had never expected this to happen. Chapter 2579, Tian Shuang's plea. Despair began to fill Tian Shuang. She felt completely powerless. In the past, when Xing'er and Lan'er were engaged to the two young masters of great status from the God's Fallen clan, the God's Fallen clan had become what the Xiandao Empire depended on the most. As a result, when the Xiandao Empire faced a crisis, Tian Shuang only thought of the God's Fallen clan. She was eager to see the God's Fallen clan stand up for the Xiandao Empire and avenge their two ancestors and save Xing'er and Lan'er. However, she had never expected that the God's Fallen clan would cower, even proactively annulling Xing'er and Lan'er's engagements. Tian Shuang knew what this all meant with her cleverness. This meant that the old man who had killed the two ancestors and kidnapped the two princesses had a background so great that even the God's Fallen clan was reluctant to provoke. At that moment, Tian Shuang became utterly dejected. She saw no hope in getting revenge anymore. Tian Shuang, don't panic for now. Just wait here. I'll go ask the Great Elder what this is all about. Luo Fei liked Tian Shuang, so he did not want to see her heartbroken. He immediately comforted her before returning to the God's Fallen clan to find Great Elder Luo Heping. It's the ancestors' order. Fei, go back. Don't interfere with the matter of the Xiandao Empire. I don't think this matter is as simple as it seems. Don't burden the entire clan just because of what you want. Luo Heping sat on a pillow as he spoke slowly and powerfully. He gazed into the distance with his deep eyes, as if he could see Mulin traveling to the southern region with a single glance. Mixed emotions appeared in his eyes. The heart of Luo Fei, who wholeheartedly wanted to help Tian Shuang before, immediately sank from that. The ancestor had personally spoken on the matter. He knew that there was no chance of reverting the decision anymore. The ancestor of the God's Fallen clan was the only Grand Prime in the clan. His will represented the entire God's Fallen clan. No one could defy him. Sorry Tian Shuang. I can't help you. Luo Fei returned outside with a heavy heart. He was also filled with powerlessness. Tian Shuang said nothing. She turned around and left. She had quite a bleak figure. The imperial palace of the Xiandao Empire had been destroyed, reduced to ruins. The two ancestors were dead, and the two princesses had been abducted, yet there was nothing she could do as one of the ancestors of the Xuanfei Empire. For the first time ever, Tian Shuang felt helpless. So what if she was a primordial realm expert? Suddenly, Tian Shuang seemed to think of something. She suddenly looked into the distance, and a final sliver of hope lit up in her despaired eyes. In the next moment, she took out the white, jade disc and activated it. Power swelled forth, and the map of the entire cloud plain was conjured up once again. Tian Shuang pointed at one of the 5 regions of the cloud plain. The teleportation formation was immediately activated, taking her away with a flash of white light. She had pointed at the southern region of the cloud plain where the Pingtian Empire stood. Within Jian Chen's luxurious residence in the Tian Yuan clan. Brother Jian Chen, the matters are urgent, so I must return. Thank you for receiving me. Tong Tian stood up and immediately bid farewell to Jian Chen. He needed to report what he learned from Jian Chen to his ancestor immediately so that the Righteous Alliance could decide what they would do. Jian Chen did not urge him to stay. Her personally accompanied Tong Tian to the entrance of the Tian Yuan clan and watched him set off with Qin Zheng. Jian Chen returned to his residence after Tong Tian left. He did not cultivate. Instead, He sat on his jade bed with his eyes closed, pondering just how he could handle the young Star Lord's retaliation. He had a basic understanding of the young Star Lord's temperament now. He knew that the young Star Lord would not stop with just a single failure. If the young Star Lord only used the power of the Four Symbols Alliance, Jian Chen had nothing to worry about. He was afraid that the young Star Lord would call for experts from the Star Brilliance plane. That would make things truly troublesome. What a powerful pulse of space. Suddenly, Jian Chen's expression changed, and he gazed into the distance. With his comprehension of the laws of space, any pulse in space within the Pingtian Empire, no matter how small it was, would be unable to escape from his senses. It's actually Senior Tian Shuang from the Xiandao Empire. Jian Chen immediately expanded the senses of his soul and easily recognized the person who had come. However, when he saw how bloodied Tian Shuang was, his face immediately changed slightly. A vicious light flashed through his eyes. He did not have any particular ties with Tian Shuang, nor did he have any deep ties with the Xiandao Empire of the northern region. However, Tian Shuang was Fairy Hao Yu's sister. Back when he fell into the hands of the commander of the 7th Army from the Empyrean demon cult, Yaxi Lian, it was all because of Tian Shuang's disc of heavenly ways that Fairy Hao Yu managed to make it in time and save him. Now, Tian Shuang had come straight to the Tian Yuan clan as soon as she arrived in the Pingtian Empire, without even cleaning up her bloody mess. Please pass on the message that Tian Shuang of the Xiandao Empire seeks the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan for an urgent matter. Very soon, Tian Shuang arrived at the entrance of the Tian Yuan clan and said to a guard. The guards, who watched over the entrance of the Tian Yuan clan, studied Tian Shuang. They seemed rather judgmental and scornful. Across the years, countless large clans and organizations had paid visits to the Tian Yuan clan. There were many envoys from the Four Symbols Alliance and Righteous Alliance among them as well. All of them had come with pure respect and admiration, unwilling to act haughtily at all. As a result, the guards who watched over the main entrance gradually developed a sense of superiority. At the same time, they gained a detailed understanding of all the organizations on the cloud plane. The guards just happened to have heard of the Xiandao Empire of the northern region before. They were only an ancient empire, so the guard really did not take them seriously. Now, someone from the empire wanted to see the patriarch. Did they really think they were someone relevant? The guards at the entrance sneered. Just when they were about to say something, a voice rang out from within the Tian Yuan clan. Senior Tian Shuang, please come in. With that, Jian Chen walked out. Greetings to the patriarch. The expressions of the guards stationed at the entrance immediately changed when they saw him. They kneeled in greeting, and the people who were scoffing broke out into a cold sweat out of fright. Jian Chen, I've finally managed to meet you. When she saw Jian Chen, it was as if Tian Shuang saw her final glimmer of hope. Jian Chen studied Tian Shuang. He could tell with a single glance that she was heavily injured. However, as they were at the entrance, they could not really talk. Senior Tian Shuang, come in and talk. Jian Chen, can you save Xing'er and Lan'er? Across the entire cloud plain, there's probably no one who can save the two of them aside from you, Tian Shuang said frantically as soon as she entered a guest room. She knew Jian Chen would not care about the deaths of the other ancestors of the Xiandao Empire, so she could only mention Xing'er and Lan'er. This was because in the past, Jian Chen did have his own encounter with the two princesses in the Xiandao Empire when he was still weak. Senior Tian Shuang, what happened? Jian Chen asked. He was in the southern region. The senses of his soul could not reach the northern region, so he had no idea what the Xiandao Empire had just experienced. Chapter 2580, Intercepted, an expert barged into our Xiandao Empire and abducted Xing'er and Lan'er. Tian Shang explained everything that had happened in just a few sentences. After this happened, I went to the God's Fallen clan first in hopes that they would step forward for us, but I never thought that the God's Fallen clan would actually sever their ties with our Xiandao Empire, added Tian Shuang. Even though she hoped the Tian Yuan clan would do something very much, she did not wish to cause problems for the Tian Yuan clan either. As a result, she revealed the fact that her enemy had a great background. Jian Chen lowered his head in thought with that. He paced around with his hands behind his back as he said slowly, a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime that even the God's Fallen clan dares not provoke. I think I already know who he is. There's only them left on the entire cloud plane that can make the God's Fallen clan so cautious. Jian Chen, do you know his identity? Tian Shuang's face lit up and immediately asked. Jian Chen nodded slightly. He drew in the air and created an image of Mulin. He asked, is it him? That's right, it's him. It's him. Tian Shuang immediately gritted her teeth when she saw Mulin. Hatred filled her eyes as she asked, Jian Chen, who is he? Jian Chen glanced at Tian Shuang deeply and said, there's no need for you to know who he is. All you need to understand is that his background is far more terrifying than you've imagined it to be. Anyways, neither the Four Symbols Alliance or the Righteous Alliance cannot afford to offend this person. It makes sense that the God's Fallen clan would distance themselves from this. With that, Tian Shuang shook. Her pale face became even paler. She said powerlessly, are Xinger and Lana really done for? Senior Tian Shuang, don't worry. Princess Xinger and Princess Lana are acquaintances of mine, so I will never just watch and let them fall into the claws of a demon. The Righteous Alliance and Four Symbols Alliance dare not offend them, but that doesn't mean that I'm afraid of offending them, said Jian Chen, comforting her. Towards the end, his voice became cold. Senior Tian Shuang, how long ago did this happen? Jian Chen continued to ask. The flames of hope lit up inside Tian Shuang again with that. She replied, less than 2 hours ago. That was true. Due to the disk of heavenly ways, Tian Shuang could teleport from wherever she wished to wherever she wished. As a result, she was able to cross over directly to the southern region in such a short amount of time. Now that the regional teleportation formation has been shut down by the Four Symbols Alliance, you can only cross regions by flying. In under 2 hours, a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime should have only reached the boundary of the northern region. He still should not have entered the southern region, Jian Chen murmured before making his decision very soon. He said to Tian Shuang, Senior Tian Shuang, just heal up here. I'll go fetch the two princesses. With that, Jian Chen suddenly vanished. He had left the Tian Yuan clan and the Ping Tian Empire through the laws of space. Tian Shuang opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but then she realized that she had completely lost track of Jian Chen. The laws of space. Tian Shuang was surprised inside. Jian Chen's laws of space had actually reached such a profound level, which shocked her very much. But very soon, she began to worry again. She had come to the Tian Yuan clan because they had a chaotic prime. Their status was so great that even the Four Symbols Alliance and Righteous Alliance dared not offend them. Originally, she wanted Jian Chen to ask the chaotic prime to take action through his status as patriarch, but she had never thought that Jian Chen would just set off alone. Although she did not know Jian Chen's current cultivation, she was confident that Jian Chen was not the ninth heavenly layer infinite prime's opponent. When she met Jian Chen in the Xiandao Empire last time, he was only a mere overgod. How could he grow to a level where he could fight ninth heavenly layer infinite primes in such a short amount of time? The southern and northern regions of the cloud plain were separated by a vast ocean. It was exactly because of this ocean that the cloud plain was split into 5 regions. A figure moved through the air with lightning speed. He shot off into the horizon in an instant and vanished. He was Mu Lin, who was returning from the northern region. With his speed as a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime, it would not take him very long to go from one region to another because an expert like that could travel through the stars. His personal speed was on par with some spaceships. As a result, in just 2 hours, Mu Lin had left the northern region and arrived above the ocean between the northern and southern regions. Very soon, he crossed the ocean and returned to the southern region. I never thought we would actually come across the rare heavenly yin body and the innate body of ways in a small place like the cloud plain. Moreover, the two women who possess these physiques are so alluring. The young master will definitely be happy if I take them back, thought Mu Lin. He was carrying a divine hall with him. Xinger and Lana were currently trapped in there. I'll use the two of them to calm down the young master first, and then we can slowly come up with an idea to destroy the Tian Yuan clan. Humph. The mere Tian Yuan clan actually shows such disrespect to the young master. They're so ignorant. If it weren't for Master's orders preventing the young master from using the forces of the Star Brilliance plane, the young master would only need a single word to destroy the measly Tian Yuan clan. Do they really think the heavenly palace of Bisheng can keep them safe? As soon as he thought of the Tian Yuan clan, Mu Ling was furious and filled with contempt. The heavenly palace of Bisheng no longer possessed a Grand Exalt, while the 9 Brilliant Star Lord had the Blood-Tier Grand Exalt. How was the First Majesty of the heavenly palace of Bisheng supposed to stand up to the 9 Brilliant Star Lord? However, at this moment, Mu Lin's expression suddenly changed. He came to a halt, forcefully stopping. He hovered 10,000 meters in the air as he stared ahead with an ugly expression. His eyes were filled with intense fury and killing intent. A white-robed young man sat on the bed of clouds before him. A small table compressed from clouds stood before the young man. He sat before the table idly, drinking tea leisurely. The wind blew fiercely at such a high altitude, causing the young man's hair to dance about as his white robes were buffeted as well. He seemed liberated and unburdened. Jian Chen. Mu Lin's face sank as he spoke through gritted teeth in utter resentment. He stared right at the white-robed young man who sat there drinking tea. It seemed as if he had been waiting there for quite some time now. Are Princess Xinger and Lana from the Xiandao Empire with you? Jian Chen remained seated. He gently sipped his tea as he asked emotionlessly. You're referring to the people in possession of the heavenly yin body and the innate body of ways, right? What has that got to do with you? Mu Lin snorted coldly as his eyes shone with killing intent. He did not cower at all. When enemies met, their eyes would blaze with hatred. He utterly resented Jian Chen for the humiliation he suffered at the Tian Yuan clan. Although he had suffered a defeat at Jian Chen's hands in the past, he believed that was due to his carelessness. He did not expect Jian Chen to have grasped the laws of space. In reality, he felt no fear towards Jian Chen at all. He was confident that he was no weaker than Jian Chen. I am acquainted with Princess Xinger and Lana, so you've gone rather overboard with your actions. Jian Chen's voice remained neutral. It was just cold. Humph, Jian Chen, you're struggling to keep yourself alive, yet you're still worrying about others? If you have so much spare time, why don't you choose where you'll be buried in the future? Just in case you'll have nowhere and become reduced to food for birds and beasts. Mu Lin sneered. As he spoke, he took out a divine hall and continued, they're indeed with me. But what can you do? Secretly, Mu Lin had already mobilized all his power, ready to clash with Jian Chen at any time. What can I do? I can kill you. Jian Chen's voice became rather stern. He glanced past the divine hall in Mu Lin's hands, and in the next moment, he exploded with light. Using his body as a sword, he shred the clouds and sliced through space, shooting towards Mu Lin with unstoppable might. Chapter 2581, Instantaneous Comprehension. As soon as Jian Chen struck out, he shone resplendently. He emitted streaks of light that outshone the scorching sun in the sky, making the world pale in comparison. It was an extremely astonishing sight. Swish! The streak of light moved extremely quickly, arriving before Mu Lin in an instant. It was even faster than lightning. Perfect. I want to settle everything from the past with this battle. Mu Lin called out. He did not cower either. Surging energy erupted from his body, causing the space there to tremble. A sword also appeared in his hand, and he swung it. 9 dazzling stars immediately condensed, giving off the might of the world. They seemed to contain the power of the ways. Apparition of the 9 stars. As Mu Lin pointed out with his sword, the 9 resplendent stars shot through the air, charging towards Jian Chen in a single row. This time, Mu Lin used his full strength right from the start. He directly used a god-tier battle skill. He dared not be as careless as before. Jian Chen unleashed the full power of the 9-star sword of heavenly ways in his hands and also conjured 9 illusionary stars. They received the first incoming star and collided together, immediately erupting with a deafening boom. The star was cut to pieces by Jian Chen's attack. However, the star came from a god-tier battle skill after all. It was already enough to threaten chaotic primes to a certain degree since a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime was using it. As a result, as soon as he cut the first star into pieces, Jian Chen's entire right arm grew numb. If it were not for his tough chaotic body, his entire right arm probably would have been shaken to pieces. Jian Chen was indifferent. Chaotic force surged through his body as he completely unleashed the great defense of the chaotic body. He struck out 9 times with lightning speed, using the full power of the sword each time. He destroyed Mu Lin's god-tier battle skills as the star were extinguished. With 9 deafening rumbles, terrifying energy exploded in the air. Sword chi scattered out in all directions, punching bottomless holes in the ground below. Meanwhile, space was ripped wide open. Jian Chen drifted backwards in the violent energy. The storm of energy was simply too violent. Even Mu Ling struggled to remain stable, so he was sent backwards by it as well. Starfall. Along the way, Mu Ling used another god-tier battle skill. This god-tier battle skill also came from the Star Brilliance Mountain, and it was created by the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. As soon as he used the battle skill, Mu Lin felt like he had established an obscure connection with an unknown space. Afterwards, a crack several dozen meters in length suddenly appeared in the space above his head. A star, shining with hazy starlight, flew out. The star was not big, only several dozen meters across. It would not raise any attention at all in a sea of stars, but it did hide a terrifying energy. Immediately, a terrifying pressure appeared. The appearance of the star seemed to affect the space there, making him heavier and denser. The star was not condensed from energy. Instead, it was a true star, a star with extraordinary power. At the same time, half a sword suddenly appeared from behind Mu Lin, stabbing towards the back of his head silently. However, Mu Lin had already prepared himself for Jian Chen's laws of space. He was completely covered in a god artifact armor. His defenses were basically airtight. The 9-star sword of heavenly ways stabbed his armor, but it only left behind a shallow mark. It failed to injure Mu Lin at all. Mu Lin's battle prowess was indeed much greater than the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime from the 4 symbols alliance that Jian Chen had killed. After all, he came from the Star Brilliance plane. Both his cultivation method and battle skills could not be compared to those possessed by regular primordial realm experts. Humph, Jian Chen, my defeat at your hands last time was only because of my carelessness. I'll like to see how you defeat me this time. You even boasted that you'll kill me. You overestimate yourself. Mu Lin snorted coldly. He formed a mental connection with the star he had summoned, making it lock onto Jian Chen's presence firmly. He surged with killing intent. As he looked at the star that had appeared from the spatial crack and sensed the pressure from the space in his surroundings, there was a flash through Jian Chen's head. He immediately understood something. The god-tier battle skill, Starfall, was created by the 9 brilliant Star Lord and contained the truths of the ways of the world. Even though the truths came from a completely different path of cultivation from the laws that Jian Chen comprehended, it became a sort of stimulation in that moment, stimulating Jian Chen's way and allowing him to achieve a sudden comprehension. Abruptly, Jian Chen lifted up his sword and swung it at the star gently. The swing abided to the trajectory of ways. Additionally, it contained a mysterious power. When he slashed out, the 9-star sword of heavenly ways in his hand completely vanished as if it had fused with the surroundings. Crack! Silently, the star that fell from the sky was directly split into two down the middle. The tremendous energy inside immediately leaked away, and with a boom, it exploded and collapsed space. Impossible. Mu Lin stared at the star in complete disbelief. Starfall was different from other God-tier battle skills. It was more like a special secret technique than a God-tier battle skill, as it was created by the 9 brilliant Star Lord. Every single star had been forged by the 9 brilliant Star Lord before being subsequently imbued with his great might. Even though Mu Lin was unable to summon the most powerful star with his cultivation as a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime, he was able to threaten some weaker chaotic primes. As a result, Mu Lin believed that even if he could not kill Jian Chen with a single strike, Jian Chen would have to pay a certain price at the very least to fend off the attack. But in the end, Jian Chen easily dealt with his starfall, and he even seemed to do it effortlessly. Mu Lin struggled to accept that. It basically meant that Jian Chen's strike was close to matching up to the attacks of chaotic primes. Jian Chen did not strike out again after destroying Mu Lin's starfall in a single move. He remained where he was in a trance as if he was daydreaming. His mind remained fixed on the move earlier. The feeling, comprehension, and usage of the laws of space and the laws of the sword allowed him to enter a wondrous state. Mu Lin was uneasy. He had been startled by Jian Chen's strike earlier. As he stared at Jian Chen, he suddenly felt something unfathomable for some reason. Making up his mind, he no longer tried to fight anymore. He turned around and fled towards the Four Symbols Alliance. Space can actually be combined with the sword in such a manner, Jian Chen murmured. His eyes became extremely bright. He stared at Mu Lin as he fled and slowly raised the 9-star sword of heavenly ways. He simply swung it gently towards Mu Lin from far away. The swing contained the truths of the laws of the sword and the laws of space. It also seemed to follow the trajectory of ways, fusing with the ways and the world. When he slashed out, the sword immediately vanished as if it had truly fused with space. Several hundred kilometers away, Mu Lin immediately felt his hairs stand on end. A bone-chilling coldness ran down from the top of his head to the bottom of his spine. Chapter 2582, The Shadowless Life-Taking Strike. Mu Lin was frightened. Who knows how long it had been since he experienced such an intense feeling of danger. Most importantly, this sense of danger came from all directions, so he felt like he could not dodge it. Mu Lin surged with energy as the low-quality god artifact armor on his body emitted dazzling light as he pushed its defenses to the limit. However, in the next moment, intense pain suddenly appeared. It immediately made Mu Lin's face pale. He subconsciously lowered his head to take a look, and immediately, he was frightened out of his wits. His body had actually been cut in half along the waist. Even his god artifact had been cut into two. Against the attack of unknown origins, even the low-quality god artifact was unable to do anything. It had been cut in half like a piece of paper. Now, only Mu Lin's top half hovered in the air. His legs and everything else fell down with the other half of the god artifact. Who is it? Who launched a sneak attack against me? Mu Lin called out in fright. He had been utterly frightened by this strange attack. Even though he had realized that it was from Jian Chen, he refused to believe it. He would rather believe that a chaotic prime had launched a sneak attack against him. So powerful. In the distance, Jian Chen was stunned as well. He stared at Mu Lin's two halves as he felt great shock. I managed to comprehend such a powerful technique from that moment alone. However, it's only one move. I'll call this move the shadowless life-taking strike, Jian Chen murmured. Even he himself was uncertain whether the technique he comprehended was a god-tier battle skill or a secret technique. Jian Chen arrived before Mu Lin silently with the laws of space. He looked at the frightened Mu Lin calmly, but his eyes were shining with killing intent. Mu Lin was finally overcome with fear when he sensed Jian Chen's killing intent, but he tried putting on a strong front and said, Jian Chen, I admit that I've underestimated you, but so what if you've defeated me? I come from the Star Brilliance plane. I belong to the organization under the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. Are you bold enough to kill me? Why wouldn't I? Jian Chen snorted coldly. He slowly raised his 9-star sword of heavenly ways and killing intent surged from him. He seemed to have made up his mind, making him fearless in his actions. Jian Chen's battle prowess had multiplied after comprehending the shadowless life-taking strike. Mu Lin's destroyed god artifact was now as fragile as paper in Jian Chen's eyes. Don't you dare. Mu Lin tried acting tough. Jian Chen's ice-cold killing intent left him truly afraid. Although he was a primordial realm expert, he struggled to maintain his usual composure in the face of death. Patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, please stay your hand. He belongs to the 9 Brilliant Star Lord after all. A slight punishment is enough. If you really kill him, it'll be troublesome. At this moment, an old voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. The moment that the voice rang out, Jian Chen immediately felt a powerful and mysterious power influence the space around him. As if space had been locked down, he felt like he had fallen into mud, and all his actions consequently became sluggish. The mysterious power was far, far greater than Jian Chen's level. They could not be compared with one another. Even with Jian Chen's laws of space, he was unable to do anything about his sluggishness. Who are you? Jian Chen's face sank, and he asked sternly. I am the Gentle Breeze Ancestor, one of the 5 ancestors of the 4 Symbols Alliance. Patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, I hope that you can do it for the sake of me and spare him, said the Gentle Breeze Ancestor. Humph, the 4 Symbols Alliance. I still haven't gotten around to you, yet you still have the audacity to plead for mercy. I am definitely killing this person today. If your 4 Symbols Alliance dares to interfere, I'll go to your headquarters to kill him, Jian Chen snorted coldly. He was extremely determined, leaving no room for negotiation. At the same time, there was a flash beside Jian Chen, and Su Ran arrived from the Tian Yuan clan. Her face was slightly cold. With a wave of her hand, the invisible restraint around Jian Chen immediately vanished. Sigh, a long sigh rang out in the sky. The senses of the Gentle Breeze Ancestor's soul had departed. Even though saving Mu Lin would be a piece of cake for him, he did not choose to do so in the end. He had a lot of worries. He did not hope to offend the Tian Yuan clan and end up provoking the heavenly palace of Bishan before the 4 Symbols Alliance had truly managed to ally themselves with the young Star Lord. Spurt. Jian Chen struck out without a second thought. His sword shone with starlight as he directly slashed out. Under Mu Lin's fearful gaze of disbelief, he beheaded him. Sharp sword chi directly tore his soul to shreds, killing him off. Mu Lin is dead. The moment Mu Lin died, a heavy voice rang out from a majestic divine hall from the Star Brilliance Mountain on the distant Star Brilliance Plain. The renowned 9 Brilliant Star Lord sat on a throne on the highest floor of the divine hall. His deep eyes flickered with starlight as he stared off into the distance in a daze. It was as if his gaze had pierced through the endless sea of stars, allowing him to see the distant cloud plain. Everything is going according to plan. Tian Yao, I hope you don't disappoint me, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord said sternly. At that moment, a smear of coldness suddenly appeared in his eyes. After killing Mu Lin, Jian Chen returned to the Tian Yuan clan with Mu Lin's corpse. He placed his head before Tian Shuang. Tian Shuang felt a multitude of emotions as she looked at the bloody head and Jian Chen's clothes that were messed up from the battle. She could not help but think about how the God's Fallen clan had annulled the marriage proposal with the Xiandao Empire, which made her sigh emotionally. Only a while ago, Jian Chen was a puny over-god, someone tiny who did not raise much of her attention at all. But now, he possessed such great strength. Jian Chen had personally slain a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime that the Xiandao Empire could do nothing amount in such a short time. Tian Shuang was thrown into emotional turmoil as a result. Senior Tian Shuang, Princess Xing'er and Princess Lan'er are in this divine hall. Jian Chen took out the divine hall from Mu Lin and directly passed it to Tian Shuang. This divine hall was a low-quality god artifact. The artifact spirit had already yielded to Jian Chen in fear. It now sat in Jian Chen's hand as the size of a fist. Thank you, thank you. Tian Shuang felt mixed emotions as she constantly thanked him. She accepted the divine hall from Jian Chen and said in a rather self-deprecating manner, "How can you call me senior now? Jian Chen, you better call me by just my name." "That works," Jian Chen agreed after a slight hesitation. When he met Tian Shuang for the first time, she was a supreme primordial realm expert in his eyes. He was supposed to call her senior back then. However, the title of senior did not come with age. Instead, it came with strength. With his current strength, there was truly no need for him to refer to Tian Shuang as his senior any longer. Of course, the people he respected were exceptions. Jian Chen, this person hails from such a great background. Will his death lead to problems for your Tian Yuan clan? Tian Shuang asked with slight worry. Chapter 2583, Internal Fragmentation. Don't worry. Our Tian Yuan clan has already fallen out with them. There will be a great battle sooner or later, Jian Chen shrugged and said without minding it so that Tian Shuang would stop worrying. Tian Shuang had already taken the divine hall from Jian Chen. She released Xing'er and Lan'er, who had been trapped within the divine hall. After so many years, the two princesses became even more beautiful. Not only did the two of them possess the unique physique of the heavenly yin body and the innate body of Weis, but their beauty was also enough to outshine the moon. They also possessed a noble bearing due to how they were raised. It was enough to entice people into wanting to dominate them. But now, both of them were pale. Despair, sorrow, and fury filled their eyes. They had been abducted by Mu Lin. They had watched the two ancestors of the Xiandao Empire die, as well as their father being buried under the rubble with heavy wounds. All of this had been firmly embedded in their heads. They struggled to accept this as they had never encountered anything like this before. Xing'er and Lan'er turned around with rather hollow eyes as soon as they emerged from the divine hall. They immediately saw Tian Shuang standing beside them, and a sliver of color finally appeared in their dim eyes. Ancestor! Xing'er and Lan'er both sobbed sorrowfully. They clung onto her arms as tears rolled down their cheeks. Their bodies trembled gently. Xing'er, Lan'er, don't be scared. You're safe now. Jian Chen saved you. Tian Shuang looked at the two of them rather tenderly. She said gently, Xing'er, Lan'er, why don't you thank young Master Jian Chen? With that, Xing'er and Lan'er raised their heads and looked around. They saw the bloody head nearby with a single glance and hatred immediately filled their eyes. Afterwards, they looked at Jian Chen and thanked him. They were in grief. Ancestor, who is this person? What grievances does our Xiandao Empire have with him? Why has he come to destroy our Xiandao Empire? Xing'er stared at Mu Lin's head in hatred as she grinded her teeth. He doesn't have any grievances with your Xiandao Empire at all. I'm guessing he only attacked you because you belong to the Righteous Alliance, Jian Chen answered Xing'er's question. Jian Chen knew extremely well that Mu Lin had come for their unique physiques. Destroying the Xiandao Empire was probably secondary. However, in order to spare the two princesses from the psychological burden, he made the Righteous Alliance the reason. Otherwise, if the two princesses learnt that they were the reason for the crisis of the Xiandao Empire, they would probably never forgive themselves. They would dwell in pain and self-blame. As long as I exist, the Xiandao Empire will not be destroyed. What happened this time is only a test in the Xiandao Empire's path to becoming powerful. Xing'er, Lan'er, stay in the Tian Yuan clan for now. I'll return to the Xiandao Empire and check on the situation there, said Tian Shuang. She had completely calmed down now, recovering her demeanor of an ancestor of the Xiandao Empire. With that, she left the Tian Yuan clan alone, returning to the Xiandao Empire with her disc of heavenly ways. At the same time, the 5 ancestors of the Four Symbols Alliance gathered together in the headquarters. Mu Lin is dead. We can't keep this a secret. He's the only bodyguard that has come from the Star Brilliance plane with the young Star Lord. His death will probably upset the young Star Lord. Gentle Breeze, you clearly could have saved Mu Lin but you didn't. Was that really the right decision? Asked Gong Ji of the 5 ancestors. There was clearly some doubt in her voice. If we don't interfere, we can remain uninvolved, but once we do, we'll really be a part of it all. The young Star Lord seems to be on our side for now, but we haven't really managed to ally ourselves with the Star Brilliance Mountain yet. As a result, we can't interfere at all. Once we offend Jian Chen, that'll be equivalent to offending the heavenly palace of Bishan, said the Gentle Breeze ancestor with a lot of worry. Gentle Breeze, you're far too cowardly. Have you ever considered that if we keep doing things half-heartedly and remain unwilling to truly assist the young Star Lord, he'll be repulsed by us and leave us in the end? I know you're thinking for the Alliance. You both want to ally us with the young Star Lord while not offending the heavenly palace of Bishan. However, if you don't pay a certain price, how will you ever get anything in return? Said Wu Lu of the 5 ancestors firmly. He clearly disagreed with the Gentle Breeze ancestors' thoughts. Gentle Breeze, I originally thought of the same thing as you, thinking that we should just try rope in the young Star Lord and avoid offending the Tian Yuan clan in Heavenly Palace of Bishan. However, with the development so far, I've gradually understood something. How can things be so perfect in this world? I think it's time for us to make our decision about this whole matter. If we keep acting half-heartedly, we'll only lose out on everything and end up suffering instead, Gong Ji said sternly. She agreed with Wu Lu on this. Today, the first disagreement between the ancestors of the Four Symbols Alliance happened since the founding of the Alliance. In the end, they ended their meeting in disagreement. What? Mu Lin is dead. He was personally slain by Jian Chen. Before long, the young Star Lord received the news of Mu Lin's death in a luxurious residence within the Four Symbols Alliance. He immediately flew into a rage. All right. All right. All right. Jian Chen, I swear I will never spare you for killing a person that belongs to me. I will never return to the Star Brilliance plane until you are dead. The young Star Lord grinded his teeth as his face darkened from anger. At that moment, his killing intent and resentment towards Jian Chen had reached the maximum. Ever since he was born, he had never resented or hated someone so much. Young Star Lord, if you plan on dealing with the Tian Yuan clan, I can assist you. At this moment, a voice rang out. An old woman with peppered hair walked in gradually. She was one of the 5 ancestors of the Four Symbols Alliance, Gong Ji. And me. Behind her, Wu Lu appeared as well. 2 of the 5 ancestors had come to the young Star Lord's residence together. They kept their presences concealed and seemed just like mortals. Chapter 2584, A Letter, You're Willing to Take Action. The young Star Lord did not lighten up from that at all. Instead, he frowned. He already knew that the Four Symbols Alliance had always been half-hearted about dealing with the Tian Yuan clan, so he never really liked the ancestors of the Four Symbols Alliance. As a matter of fact, he was slightly repulsed by them. Gong Ji and Wu Lu arrived before the young Star Lord. They presented themselves in an extremely ordinary manner, without putting on any airs at all. Gentle Breeze is too fearful with whatever he does. He worries that our participation will lead to a war with the Righteous Alliance, but I think that with the young Star Lord, they won't have the courage to take such action, said Gong Ji. You can't blame Gentle Breeze for this. Gentle Breeze is considering the bigger picture. After all, our Four Symbols Alliance isn't the opponent of the Righteous Alliance right now, Wu Lu spoke for Gentle Breeze. Although there were disagreements between the five of them about the Tian Yuan clan, they were still allied with one another. At the same time, the Gentle Breeze ancestor did possess quite some prestige in the Four Symbols Alliance. Young Star Lord, you know that the Tian Yuan clan is backed by the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng, right? The Heavenly Palace of Bisheng is far more powerful than anything our Four Symbols Alliance can deal with. We can destroy the Tian Yuan clan for you, but you must help us deal with the threat of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng first, Wu Lu continued. As if he could sense that the young Star Lord was repulsed by the Four Symbols Alliance, he directly laid everything out on the table. That's right. If there wasn't the threat of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng and the Righteous Alliance, we could easily destroy the measly Tian Yuan clan, Gong Ji said coldly. It was as if she did not take the Tian Yuan clan seriously at all. All right. If that's the case, I'll promise to protect you in the future. If the people from the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng come to make trouble, I will stand forward personally. Humph, the current Heavenly Palace of Bisheng depends on the First Majesty alone. Do they really think they're the same as in the past? Moreover, the First Majesty has grievances with the heaven-splitting ancestor. If the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng falls out with our Star Brilliance Mountain as well at a time like this, they would just be looking to be destroyed, the young Star Lord said coldly. There's even less reason for you to worry about the Righteous Alliance. Once my training ends, I can call on the experts of the Star Brilliance Plane at any time to destroy them. The young Star Lord was extremely arrogant. However, he indeed possessed the ability to do so. The Nine-Brilliant Star Lord was the supreme ruler on the Star Brilliance Plane. Although the Star Brilliance Plane was not exactly under his complete control, there was almost no difference from that. As the only child of the Nine-Brilliant Star Lord, the young Star Lord possessed influence that could not be underestimated. We don't have to worry since the young Star Lord has said that. As if Gong Ji and Wu Lu had finally been liberated from the burden of worry, they could not help but smile at ease. In reality, basically no one who possessed a cultivation like theirs would want to rely on others. However, the threat from the Righteous Alliance forced their Four Symbols Alliance to find someone to depend on. Otherwise, even if they did not offend the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng, they would still meet their end when the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak made a breakthrough in cultivation. Come with me tomorrow morning to destroy the Tian Yuan clan. I want Shangguan Mu'er alive so that she can serve me obediently. As for Jian Chen, I want to cut him to pieces personally. The young Star Lord smiled evilly. We will support the young Star Lord. We need to destroy the Tian Yuan clan quickly, just in case the Righteous Alliance sends reinforcements, said Gong Ji. Young Star Lord, someone has sent a letter. It's specially directed to the young Star Lord, a guard reported from outside. Afterwards, he walked in politely with an envelope in his hand. Hold on. Be careful. Gong Ji and Wu Lu changed in expression. Before the young Star Lord could accept the envelope, they reached out and the envelope flew over, restrained by powerful energy. They said sternly, there's almost no people who know the young Star Lord's identity. How does the person who sent the letter know of this? And he even knows the young Star Lord is in our Four Symbols Alliance. We have to be careful. Humph, you're all cowards. Who dares to harm me in the Saints' world? The young Star Lord said extremely confidently. There aren't any lingering traces of presences. Who sent the letter? Gong Ji and Wu Lu thought. They carefully inspected the envelope. After confirming there was nothing wrong with it, they could only hand it to the young Star Lord. The envelope held a letter written on a beast's hide. The young Star Lord opened the envelope and took out the beast's hide. The beast's hide was as thin as paper and extremely tough. However, it was completely blank, without any words at all. An imprint of consciousness. The young Star Lord murmured. He had great insight, so he could tell with a single glance that the beast's hide possessed an imprint of consciousness. An imprint of consciousness was like a medium. As long as someone that the owner of the imprint recognized made contact with the imprint of consciousness with the senses of their soul, they would be able to undergo a conversation from a great distance away. However, if it were someone who was not recognized, nothing would happen. The young Star Lord was interested. He expanded the senses of his soul without any hesitation, making contact with the imprint of consciousness on the beast's hide. Can you tell who left behind this imprint of consciousness? Is it someone we know? Wu Lu asked Gong Ji secretly. The person who left it behind purposefully concealed their identity. It's difficult to tell. Gong Ji shook her head gently. The light in her eyes flickered with uncertainty. Very soon, the young Star Lord opened his eyes. He smiled mysteriously and murmured, I never thought it would be like this. Interesting, quite interesting. Young Star Lord, may I ask who left this imprint of consciousness? Gong Ji asked. You all know this person. His name is Luo Mantian, said the young Star Lord. What? Luo Mantian? Gong Ji and Wu Lu were shocked. However, soon afterwards, their hearts sank. They became rather worried. Luo Mantian had actually made contact with the young Star Lord. Did the Righteous Alliance plan on roping in the young Star Lord as well? This was bad news to them. They knew extremely well that the connection between the Tian Yuan clan and the Righteous Alliance was not actually very deep. The only reason they had said all that was to prevent the young Star Lord from going to the Righteous Alliance and leaving them. The situation has changed. We can't destroy the Tian Yuan clan so soon. We need to pressure them slowly and force out the people from the Righteous Alliance. The young Star Lord smiled slyly as if victory was within his grasp. Chapter 2585, The Argument Between the Protectors. Looking at how confident the young Star Lord was, Wu Lu and Gong Ji looked at each other as their brows furrowed. They had already guessed something. On the distant desolate plain, many people still had not forgotten Jian Chen's name even after so many years. This was despite the fact that the mess Jian Chen created back then had already settled down. It was just that very few people mentioned it. Only the huge, gaping hole on the plain indicated just how great of a disturbance Jian Chen had caused in the past. The huge hole was naturally created from the astonishing strike from the 8 experts deep underground. However, the hole seemed much smaller compared to the past. Cultivators from various large organizations were slowly filling it in. It would return to its previous state before long. The celestial sword saint remained in the Sword God Mountains, ignoring the affairs happening around him. He held an extremely great status, firmly holding the position as the greatest expert of the desolate plain. Meanwhile, open and concealed struggles continued between the organizations on the plain. The desolate plain did not seem any different from before Jian Chen had come. Of course, that was only on the surface. Intelligent people could clearly sense that the situation on the entire desolate plain had undergone an overwhelming change. This was because the Radiant Saint Hall that was only average among all the peak organizations on the desolate plain before was now showing signs of being able to conquer the entire plain. This was all because the Radiant Saint Hall possessed a few protector swords. At this moment, one of the wielders of the protector swords, Han Xian, sat atop the soaring cloud's peak. He faced the cliff as he stared at the sea of clouds in a daze. Behind Han Xian was a scholarly, middle-aged man. He possessed a striking appearance and was an infinite prime. He possessed the bearing of someone who held power, making him awe-inspiring. However, at this moment, his face was filled with smiles. He seemed rather restrained as he stood behind Han Xian. He said some things carefully, and he sounded rather awkward. Han Xian, I know you have great prejudice towards the clan, but no matter what, the blood of the Han family flows through your veins. The two ancestors in the clan talk about you daily. They say that you're the greatest pride of our Han family, and all the important members of the clan take pride in you, Han Xian, whether it be the two ancestors or the young children in the clan, they all think about you every day. Do you think you can make some time and go back to have a look? The scholarly, middle-aged man was the patriarch of the Han family. He held an extremely great status in the Han family, but now, he seemed very careful before Han Xian. He even spoke gently, kind of like he was fawning over Han Xian. It was as if he was afraid of displeasing him. Han Xian sat on the edge of the cliff silently. He stared at the clouds in a daze and did not move at all. He only sighed inside and thought, if I hadn't obtained a protector sword, I wonder what I'll be like right now. Han Xian looked down at the foot of the soaring cloud's peak. Many peak lords had gathered there along with two elders. These people had come to visit him. They waited patiently at the foot of the mountain. Without his permission, even the two elders dared not set foot on the soaring cloud's peak. Dong! At this moment, a long bell rang out from the sacred hall that stood above the clouds, resounding through the entire Radiant Saint Hall. This was a signal to summon the entire upper echelon of the Radiant Saint Hall. Sir! A white figure flew out from a cave on the mountain, quickly arriving before Han Xian. She was by you. She wore the white robes that represented Radiant Saint Masters and stood gracefully. She possessed an otherworldly bearing, and a terrifying power seemed to be hidden within her, as if it were hibernating. That was the power from the protector sword that ranked fourth, Cliffgrinder's sword. It's Junior Baiyu. Junior Baiyu has become even prettier since the last time I saw you. The patriarch of the Han family smiled as he greeted Baiyu politely. Baiyu furrowed her brows and subconsciously took a step away from the patriarch of the Han family, as if being called Junior Baiyu left her extremely uncomfortable. Baiyu, let's go. Han Xian stood up. He ignored the patriarch of the Han family and called Baiyu, taking to the air with her and heading directly to the sacred hall. As wielders of protector swords, Baiyu and Han Xian possessed extremely great statuses in the Radiant Saint Hall. They could enter the sacred hall and Tower of Radiance freely. Even the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall had no right to control the protectors. However, they had already grown accustomed to living on the soaring cloud's peak, so even after they became protectors, the two of them continued to stay on the soaring cloud's peak. They rarely ventured into the sacred hall. At the same time, the two elders waiting at the foot of the mountain flew towards the sacred hall as well. Before long, the sacred hall was filled with people. The leader of the Radiant Saint Hall, Yu Chen, the 8 vice leaders, the wielders of the protector swords, Han Xian, Baiyu, Xian Ming, Donglin Yanxue, and Gong Sun Ji, along with all the elders were gathered there now. Gong Sun Ji, what's the important matter for gathering us all here by ringing the sacred bell? Yu Chen sat at the very front and asked Gong Sun Ji. Gong Sun Ji stood with his hands behind his back. He looked around and glanced past the 8 vice leaders and all the elders. He said, I've already found Jian Chen's whereabouts. He's currently hiding in a place called the Tian Yuan clan in the southern region of the Cloud Plain. That little thief used the name of Chang Yang to infiltrate our Radiant Saint Hall and stole our greatest legacy, the method of the Exalted Saint. It's time for us to take back the cultivation method now. Humph, quit spewing lies, Gongsun Ji. My senior brother is no thief. He changed his name and hid in our Radiant Saint Hall because he had the Inata Tower on him. He was hunted down by all the experts of the saints' world. And as for the method of the Exalted Saint, why don't you think about it was exactly him who received it, not anyone else? It clearly means that the method of the Exalted Saint is supposed to go to my senior brother, Bai Yu retorted firmly as soon as Gongsun Ji finished speaking, showing no respect towards him. They were both protectors, so they could not harm each other at all, as the protector swords forbid it. As a result, the protectors did not fear one another. It goes without saying just how wondrous a Grand Exalt's legacy is. There has only ever been someone who is chosen by a supreme legacy like this. There has never been an example where someone steals it, unless they're exceptional peak experts. Jian Chen is clearly not the latter, so I agree with Junior Bai Yu. The legacy chose Jian Chen. He did not steal it, said Donglin Yanxue, disagreeing with Gongsun Ji as well. Chapter 2586, Challenging the Leader. Gongsun Ji snorted coldly. He looked at Bai Yu and Donglin Yanxue in fury and said, "The legacy came from my ancestor. Even if it's supposed to go to someone, it's supposed to go to a descendant. Jian Chen is an outsider and a member of the martial soul lineage. What right does he have to obtaining the legacy? Moreover, my ancestor's legacy had already chosen me in the Tower of Radiance. It was Jian Chen who forcefully stole it. He stole the method of the Exalted Saint from the legacy, or the cultivation method would have been mine already." Gongsun Ji looked at the several dozen elders present and asked, "Tell me, is Jian Chen a thief or not? Isn't that obvious? Everything has been laid out on the table." "Jian Chen is obviously a thief," an elder said as soon as Gongsun Ji asked the question. "Most importantly, Jian Chen is a member of the martial soul lineage. The supreme cultivation method of our Radiant Saint Hall cannot end up in the hands of the martial soul lineage. We need to retrieve the Grand Exalt's cultivation method," the elders asserted from below. At least half of them spoke out and opposed Jian Chen. Gongsun Ji could not help but smile complacently when he saw so many people stand on his side. Ever since he gained a protector sword, ever since he learnt that he was the descendant of a Grand Exalt, his wild ambitions had swelled. Han Xian and Bai Yu had spent the past few years cultivating, whereas he had moved around in the Sacred Hall, using his special identity as a protector to begin developing his own faction. Now, roughly half of the elders in the Radiant Saint Hall stood on his side. As a result, some elders immediately supported him when he expressed his opinion. Bai Yu and Donglin Yanshue's faces darkened in anger when they saw so many elders voice their opinions against Jian Chen, but they could do nothing about it. After all, these elders were their seniors. They possessed great authority in the Radiant Saint Hall and were respected. Against so many elders, they too felt powerless. The leader of the Radiant Saint Hall, Yu Chen, watched on calmly. He said nothing. He did not voice his opinion regarding this matter. Cough, cough. With the gentle coughs, the noisy hall immediately fell quiet. One of the vice leaders seated there stood up and said, "Since we already know Jian Chen's whereabouts, I think we should take back the method of the Exalted Saint as soon as possible." With that, the vice leader clasped his fist towards Yu Chen and asked, "I wonder what the leader thinks." Immediately, all the people in the hall looked towards the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall. Whether the Radiant Saint Hall would attack Jian Chen and take back the method of the Exalted Saint would be completely up to the leader. After all, the leader was the person who held the greatest authority in the Radiant Saint Hall. He was the final decision maker. Even the wielders of the protector swords could not match up to him in terms of that. Yu Chen remained calm. He showed no particular emotions at all. He glanced at Gongsun Ji deeply before scanning past Bai Yu, Donglin Yanxue, Han Xian, Xian Ming, and Xian Zhan. He said, "What do you think? You better speak your minds as well. After all, you are protectors of the Radiant Saint Hall." With that, Donglin Yanxue and Bai Yu immediately began to retaliate. "It doesn't matter whether he's Chang Yang or Jian Chen. He was my student in the past after all, my proudest student. If you plan on targeting him, I will never agree to it," Han Xian expressed his personal opinion. 3 of the 6 protectors had already spoken that they opposed doing anything to Jian Chen. Gongsun Ji snorted coldly. He glanced past Han Xian, Bai Yu, and Donglin Yanxue coldly before folding his arms and looking to another side. He was not surprised by this. He already utterly resented the 3 of them. The vice leaders and the elders of the Radiant Saint Hall and looked towards the father and son pair, Xian Zhan and Xian Ming. Without a single doubt, Gongsun Ji was the person who wanted the method of the exalted saint back the most. Out of the 6 protectors, only the duo had yet to express their opinion. Xian Ming thought over it a little when he sensed everyone's gaze. He said, "I'll do whatever my father does. What my father chooses is my choice as well." With that, Xian Ming shut up and stood to one side quietly. Vice Leader Xian Zhan, the method of the exalted saint is the greatest legacy of our Radiant Saint Hall. We can't let it end up in the hands of the martial soul lineage, or it'll form a great problem in the future. As a matter of fact, our Radiant Saint Hall might be destroyed as a result, said Gongsun Ji. The opinions of the protectors would influence the final decision of the leader, so before Xian Zhan had spoken, Gongsun Ji butted in and attempted to persuade him. Xian Ming thought about the whole thing. Only then did he ask, "Gongsun Ji, may I ask how your cultivation of the secret techniques from the legacy is going?" Gongsun Ji frowned as he felt contempt inside. He thought Xian Zhan was threatening him. He thought Xian Ming wanted the secret techniques from the legacy, or he would not stand on his side. All the ancient secret techniques and battle skills in the legacy are extremely strange. To be honest, I haven't managed to comprehend any single one of them completely, which is why the method of the exalted saint is crucial to practicing these ancient, powerful secret techniques. Without this crucial cultivation method, these secret techniques are useless. Gongsun Ji looked right at Xian Zhan. Although Xian Zhan was both a wielder of a protector sword and the leader of the 8 vice leaders, he showed no respect at all. Instead, he began to despise Xian Zhan secretly due to his question. He continued, "Of course, if Vice Leader Xian Zhan is interested in these secret techniques and doesn't believe me, I'm willing to make a few public so that everyone here can check." "There's no need for that." Xian Zhan waved his hand. He said, "I'm not interested in the items of the legacy. I just want to confirm some of my thoughts and now, I've basically confirmed them all." Xian Zhan paused and looked at the leader. He said, "Leader, I think this matter isn't as easy as it seems. We need some time to properly investigate it and get to the bottom of it all." "What's there to investigate? It's such a simple matter, so why do you need to investigate at all?" Gongsun Ji flew into a fury. What Xian Zhan said basically meant that out of all the protectors, everyone apart from him stood with Jian Chen. As Gongsun Ji was furious, he felt extremely puzzled as well. He could understand why Bai Yu, Donglin Yanxue, and Han Xian would support Jian Chen. After all, they had ties with him in the first place. What truly confused him was Xian Zhan's decision. "Enough. Stop arguing," said the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall. He sat calmly on the throne and said with great authority, "It's rather strange that Jian Chen could obtain a portion of the legacy. I will converse with the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance about this. Once I understand everything, I will make my decision." The artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance has already fallen into a slumber again. If it doesn't wake up, when are we supposed to wait until? Gongsun Ji snarled. He refused to accept this very much. His face had already darkened. Perhaps, he might awaken very soon. Yu Qin glanced at Gong Sun Ji deeply and felt even more displeased with him. The meeting ends here. Everyone is dismissed. Yu Qin ended the meeting and immediately stood up, about to leave. Hold on. Gong Sun Ji called out. His face was sunken as he stared right at Yu Qin with an icy-cold gaze. He said, Leader, the method of the exalted saint is the greatest legacy of our radiant Saint Hall. It's utterly crucial to us. Yet, you always remained reluctant to take it back as the current leader of the radiant Saint Hall, allowing the martial soul lineage to grow more powerful with each coming day. What intentions are you harboring? Chapter 2587, Usurping Power, How Dare You? Gong Sun Ji, watch your mouth. Xian Zhan, who had remained calm the entire time, immediately became infuriated when he heard Gong Sun Ji's words. His bellow created a terrifying sound wave that made the entire sacred hall rumble. All the elders in the sacred hall were deafened by it as their souls shuddered. A dazzling light rose up from Gong Sun Ji. The power from the protector sword protected him. The protector swords that belonged to Han Xian, Bai Yu, Dong Lin Yanxue, and Xian Ming automatically responded as well. So powerful. Xian Zhan is exceedingly close to Grand Prime. The 7 other vice leaders narrowed their eyes as they became more wary of Xian Zhan. Yu Qin, who was about to leave, paused as well. He looked back at Gong Sun Ji calmly and asked, Gong Sun Ji, tell me, what can I be harboring? Gong Sun Ji did not answer the question. He glanced past the vice leaders and all the elders below and said slowly, I believe that Yu Qin is no longer appropriate for the position of leader. The leader of the Radiant Saint Hall should be someone else. The entire sacred hall was thrown into an uproar with that. The expressions of many of the elders changed as they cried out. Even the expressions of the 8 vice leaders changed, as they were unable to remain composed any longer. Gong Sun Ji was publicly opposing the leader. If he did this in any other organization or clan, it would be treachery or treason. It was a crime that could get him beheaded. For a moment, everyone was stunned by Gong Sun Ji's words. The only person who remained calm was the person being challenged, the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall, Yu Qin. How dare you? Gong Sun Ji, do you know what you are saying? Gong Sun Ji, you're committing treachery. The standard punishment is death. Why don't you hurry up and kneel and apologize? The leader might be willing to be lenient with your punishment, 2 vice leaders immediately called out. Their faces had darkened from anger. They were furious. Below, a few elders criticized Gong Sun Ji as well. However, these people only made up a tiny fraction of all the elders present. More people chose to remain silent. There were even some people who looked back and forth between Yu Qin and Gong Sun Ji. The light in their eyes flickered as if they were measuring something. Death? Leniency? Ha 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 ha. Gong Sun Ji could not help but break out into laughter, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. His laughter echoed through the entire hall. It seemed to stand out a lot. My ancestor is the Supreme Grand Exalt of the Radiant Saint Hall. I am the descendant of the Grand Exalt, and even the Tower of Radiance came from my ancestor. Moreover, I wield the leading sword of the 9 protector swords, Godslayer's sword. May I ask who will punish me in the Radiant Saint Hall? Who has the right to judge me? Gong Sun Ji said extremely arrogantly. He thought of himself as superior to everyone else, completely looking down on the upper echelon of the Radiant Saint Hall, including the leader. Gong Sun Ji. Xian Zhan bellowed out. He leapt to his feet as he glared at Gong Sun Ji. Killing intent surged within his eyes as a powerful presence erupted from his body. However, Gong Sun Ji was fearless as he faced Xian Zhan, a fellow protector sword wielder. He stared at Xian Zhan in a rather provoking and despising manner and said, "What? Does Vice Leader Xian Zhan plan on laying his hands on me? I would really like to see whether you can defeat my Godslayer's sword that ranks first with your Mindwaker's sword that ranks last." Xian Zhan, the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall, spoke out to stop Xian Zhan from getting further agitated. He remained composed, as if he was not angered by Gong Sun Ji's words at all. Instead, he stared at him calmly and said, "Gong Sun Ji, since you think I don't have the right to the position of leader, who do you think has the right?" As soon as the leader said that, the huge discussion hall fell silent. It was so quiet that it would be possible to hear a pin drop. "Humph, isn't that obvious? You can actually say that the Radiant Saint Hall came from my ancestor's generation, so my ancestor is the true, supreme figure of the Radiant Saint Hall. As for me, I am the only person who possesses my ancestor's bloodline so far, and I am also the undisputed master of the Tower of Radiance in the future. I think it's obvious who's suitable for the position of leader," said Gong Sun Ji as he boasted shamelessly. He did not try to hide any of it, as ever since he gained Godslayer's sword, he had always eyed the position of leader. Now that an opportunity had finally presented itself, he obviously would not hesitate at all. He had already waited for too long for this day. With that, many of the elders fell silent. They could not argue back. He was the descendant of the Grand Exalt, the wielder of the Godslayer's sword, and the future master of the Tower of Radiance. The current Gong Sun Ji really could not be underestimated. Although the Tower of Radiance had yet to accept a master, the elders were already certain that it would become Gong Sun Ji's possession sooner or later. That was because the master of the Tower of Radiance was Gong Sun Ji's ancestor. Gong Sun Ji was the only person with the Grand Exalt's bloodline who had appeared so far, so he was indeed the most suitable candidate for inheriting the Tower of Radiance. They could tell when he obtained Godslayer's sword. Clearly, the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance was taking special care of him. In terms of strength, Gong Sun Ji is indeed no weaker than any regular Grand Prime with Godslayer's sword. He might even be more powerful than them, mumbled an elder. He spoke softly, but everyone in the hall possessed great cultivation. They heard exactly what he said. Xian Zhan snorted coldly as his gaze became utterly piercing. He suddenly locked his eyes onto an elder in the crowd and directly took a step forward. "Vice Leader Xian Zhan, what are you trying to do? Are you doing whatever you want just because you're stronger? Why don't you have a look at where you are?" Gong Sun Ji directly drew his protector sword. Enveloped by its dazzling light, he appeared before Xian Zhan in a flash. "Gong Sun Ji, you are trying to revolt. Think about it all. Are you really suitable for the position of leader with your current cultivation? You're only a radiant god king after all. If you didn't possess a protector sword, you wouldn't even have the right to set foot in this hall. You would struggle to make everyone yield to you," Xian Zhan said coldly. "I would struggle to make everyone yield to me?" Gong Sun Ji sneered. He glanced below and said, "Since Vice Leader Xian Zhan says that I, Gong Sun Ji, would struggle to make everyone yield to me, I would like to see if there are any people who support me, and how many people who do. Those who support me, please move to my side." Immediately, the elders in the discussion hall began to move. After a moment of hesitation and thought, people began to make their way behind Gong Sun Ji. Gradually, more and more elders moved. In the end, there were actually half the elders who stood behind Gong Sun Ji. Xian Zhan's face became extremely sunken when he saw this. Even Bai Yu, Han Xian, and Dong Lin Yenshue's expressions became very ugly. Chapter 2588, A New Leader. The remaining half of the elders were clearly surprised when they saw so many people support Gong Sun Ji. Their original beliefs began to waver. In the end, another portion of people arrived behind Gong Sun Ji. Now, 60% of the elders supported Gong Sun Ji. Sigh. Gong Sun Ji is the descendant of the Grand Exalt after all. Suddenly, a vice leader let out a soft sigh and slowly stood up as well, arriving beside Gong Sun Ji. With Gong Sun Ji's identity and status, I don't oppose him if he wants to control our Radiant Saint Hall, said another vice leader. Although he did not stand with Gong Sun Ji, his words had already expressed his support of Gong Sun Ji. Gong Sun Ji wields the most powerful protector sword. I believe as he grows in strength, he'll be able to unleash more and more of the power from the protector sword. I believe the Radiant Saint Hall will become more and more powerful under Gong Sun Ji's lead, said a third vice leader, standing with Gong Sun Ji. Immediately, the discussion hall fell silent again. The atmosphere was rather strange. More than 60% of the elders and 3 vice leaders chose to support Gong Sun Ji. This outcome caught many people off guard. They found it rather difficult to accept. Even Xian Zhan was silenced. He had never thought that Gong Sun Ji would have gained such a great influence over the Radiant Saint Hall unknowingly. Leader Yu Chen, I, Gong Sun Ji, hereby challenge you formally. If you defeat me, I will never mention this matter ever again in the future, Gong Sun Ji called out. His face had become flushed from his emotions. He clearly seemed extremely excited. Even though Yu Chen was the only Grand Prime of the Radiant Saint Hall, Gong Sun Ji possessed a protector sword. He did not fear Yu Chen at all. The sacred hall was thrown into an uproar. Someone had actually challenged the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall publicly. This was definitely unprecedented in the history of the organization. This was because the leader was the most powerful person in charge of the Radiant Saint Hall. They could mobilize everything that the Radiant Saint Hall had. They were the person who possessed the greatest authority. Challenging the leader was opposing the leader. There would never be a good outcome for doing so. The consequences would be extremely severe. However, at this moment, everyone discovered in their misery that there was no longer anyone who could keep Gong Sun Ji at bay within the Radiant Saint Hall. Apart from his identity as the Grand Exalt's descendant, just being a wielder of a protector sword made him undefeatable. Gong Sun Ji, if you want to challenge the leader, you need to get through us first. Gong Sun Ji, why don't you try not using the protector sword's power? Bai Yu and Donglin Yanxue stood forward together. Their protector swords flickered brightly as a holy light wrapped around them. They stood up to Gong Sun Ji. Gong Sun Ji, you better give up. Many of us won't yield to you even if you become the leader, as you lack the prestige that can convince everyone, Han Xin said as well, trying to persuade Gong Sun Ji. You want to stop me? Gong Sun Ji's eyes shone with cold light. Killing intent appeared. He did not try to hide any of it. Bai Yu and Donglin Yanxue did not shy away at all. They seemed like they were ready to stop Gong Sun Ji even if at the cost of their lives. The protectors of the Radiant Saint Hall were about to clash. They were ready to start fighting at any time. Even though they could do nothing to one another, they did not lose out in comparative might. Stop! Just when the protectors were about to start fighting, the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall, Yu Chen, called out, stopping the protectors just in time. He said sternly, the protector swords are the greatest power of our Radiant Saint Hall. The only reason our Radiant Saint Hall possesses such a great status on the desolate plain right now is because of the protector swords. As wielders of the protector swords, you should be united. Do not fight among yourselves, or it will be the greatest loss for our Radiant Saint Hall, Yu Chen said powerfully. He radiated with righteousness, shining with light. At that moment, he seemed like such a great man, so selfless. Gong Sun Ji. Yu Chen looked at Gong Sun Ji. His eyes shone brightly as he said in a rather liberated fashion, since you want the position of leader, I'll step down from now onwards. I won't be the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall anymore. Yu Chen's words were shocking. His decision immediately threw the sacred hall into an uproar. Everyone experienced emotional turmoil. Although a group of people supported Gong Sun Ji in becoming the leader, these elders were still heavily impacted when Yu Chen truly stepped down. Some of them even began to question their own decision. "Leader, you must not," Xian Zhan and the other vice leaders called out and did their best to persuade Yu Chen. Yu Chen raised his hand to stop them. He said in a righteous manner, "I've already made my decision. There's no need to say anything more. As long as the Radiant Saint Hall can become more and more prosperous, anyone can become the leader. Gong Sun Ji, I hope the Radiant Saint Hall will become more and more prosperous under your lead." Throwing that out there, Yu Chen drifted away. He left in an extremely straightforward manner. He felt no reluctance towards letting go of the position as leader. Instead, it felt like he had been freed. "Brother Yu Chen," Xian Zhan immediately chased after him. "Leader, leader." From behind, the furious and unhappy voices of the elders rang out. Many of the elders followed him closely. Gong Sun Ji smiled victoriously inside the majestic sacred hall. He looked at the throne that represented supreme authority as his eyes lit up with desire and uncontainable excitement. Bai Yu, Han Xian, Donglin Yanxue, and Xian Ming remained silent. They were powerless to change anything now that this had already happened. I never thought that Gong Sun Ji would have already roped in so many members of the upper echelon. It was the decision from these elders and the 3 vice leaders that forced the leader to leave, as the leader did not wish to see the Radiant Saint Hall collapse from within. He could only give up the position as a result, Xian Ming said to Donglin Yanxue, Han Xian, and Bai Yu secretly. His voice was filled with helplessness. Tens of thousands of kilometers beyond the Radiant Saint Hall, the white-robed Yu Chen and Xian Zhan stood atop a mountain shrouded by clouds. Yu Chen, who had just stepped down, was composed and unrestrained. However, Xian Zhan, who stood before him, had a heavy heart. "Brother Yu Chen, why must you do this?" Xian Zhan looked at Yu Chen deeply and sighed. Yu Chen stood with his arms behind his back. He looked in the direction of the Radiant Saint Hall. Warmth filled his eyes, it was just like a child looking as his mother. It was filled with a gentle and indescribable feeling. The Radiant Saint Hall is my home. As long as my home is here, as long as it still exists, it isn't important who makes the decisions. Gong Sun Ji refused to continue with his ordinary life after receiving the Protector Sword. He became brimming with ambition. I could tell that my position caught his eye long ago, so everything that happened today was within my expectations. If I did not step down, the Radiant Saint Hall would not be able to avoid internal conflict. If it grew severe, the entire Radiant Saint Hall would even be ripped apart, divided into pieces. That is not what I wish to see. Yu Chen looked at Xian Ming calmly. He did not feel anything from losing the position as leader, as if these names of renown and positions of power were nothing in his eyes. The Radiant Saint Hall now faces a rare age of prosperity, which requires you all to be united even more. Only with unity can you be powerful. Nothing can be allowed to happen to us internally at a time like this, let alone internal conflict. Xian Zhan, I hope that you understand this. Brother Yu Chen. Xian Zhan was embittered. He had no idea what to say. Just how many people in the Radiant Saint Hall would be able to behave as selflessly as Yu Chen, devoting themselves wholeheartedly so that the Radiant Saint Hall would grow in power. He even gave up his position as leader to avoid internal strife. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Gong Sun Ji to obtain the position, as 5 of the 6 protectors stood with Yu Chen. Xian Zhan, you should return. With Gong Sun Ji's prestige, he will struggle to make everyone accept him. I hope that you can assist him for the sake of the Radiant Saint Hall. You can't let anything happen to the Radiant Saint Hall internally no matter what. I'll leave Donglin Yanxue, Han Xian, and Bai Yu for you to persuade, Yu Chen requested seriously. Brother Yu Chen, you're leaving. Xian Zhan stared at Yu Chen blankly. If their identities on the surface were discarded, he and Yu Chen were actually the best of brothers. They had gone through thick and thin together. Otherwise, when Jian Chen was exposed in the past and emerged from the Tower of Radiance afterwards, the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall would have never let Jian Chen leave simply over something Xian Zhan said. Yu Chen nodded. He was surprisingly stern as he said, "So far, only you and me know the secret of the martial soul lineage being the imperial clan. I plan on leaving and investigating the history between our Radiant Saint Hall and the martial soul lineage." It said that the world of the spirit sages was the doomsday battlefield for the last aeon. Even though the entire world was ruined, many ancient traces remain. I plan on visiting that world and seeing if I can find anything. And the spirit sages. They're the descendants from that world. They've existed for an extremely lengthy period of time. I plan on visiting them and seeing if I can find anything from them. Chapter 2589, Something Major Xian Zhan knew that Yu Chen had already made up his mind. As such, no matter what he did, he would not be able to stop Yu Chen from leaving the desolate plain. He could only let out a long, helpless sigh. He understood Yu Chen. He knew that Yu Chen had no desire to rule. The Radiant Saint Hall was his home. As long as this home was fine and could grow in prosperity, he would be satisfied. Whether he was in charge did not seem all that important. Stepping down as leader gave Yu Chen a sense of liberation. He took on the position in the past because the Radiant Saint Hall needed him. They needed an expert like him. Now that the Radiant Saint Hall had their protectors, it was no longer necessary for him to watch over it. "Brother Yu Chen, take care." Xian Zhan clasped his fist towards Yu Chen and bid him farewell. "Xian Zhan, you take care too. You have to pay more attention to the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance once I leave. As soon as the artifact spirit awakens, you have to get to the bottom of the matter with the martial soul lineage." This was the last thing that Yu Chen said. With that, he turned into a streak of white light and shot off into the horizon, vanishing in an instant. He left the desolate plain alone, without any reluctance. Xian Zhan remained where he stood. He stared in the direction that Yu Chen had left in for quite some time before gradually returning to his senses. However, he seemed lonely at that moment. "Gong Sun Ji," Xian Zhan uttered Gong Sun Ji's name. He ground his teeth as his eyes were filled with coldness. But very soon, he calmed down. He returned to normal, returning to the Radiant Saint Hall like nothing had happened at all. However, when Xian Zhan returned to the Radiant Saint Hall, Gong Sun Ji was already sitting down on the throne for the leader eagerly. He was in high spirits, and he seemed like he looked down upon the world. "Xian Zhan, where is Yu Chen?" Gong Sun Ji immediately asked in an arrogant manner like he was in charge when he saw Xian Zhan return. "He has already left the desolate plain," Xian Zhan said emotionlessly. "What? Yu Chen has left? He has left the desolate plain? Really?" Gong Sun Ji beamed. He immediately lightened up with that news. He felt at ease. Yu Chen had assumed the position as leader quite some time ago, so he held great influence in the Radiant Saint Hall. That made Gong Sun Ji worry very much. He was worried that Yu Chen's existence would threaten his position one day. Now that he had left, Gong Sun Ji became completely fearless. "Xian Zhan, I've never found Gong Sun Ji pleasing to the eye. Now that he has become the leader, I oppose this all the most. Why don't you take us and leave the Radiant Saint Hall? We can found our own organization," Mo He of the 8 vice leaders said to Xian Zhan secretly at this moment. "That's right. Xian Zhan, we're willing to found our own organization with you as the leader. Xian Zhan, I would hate to see that bastard Gong Sun Ji order us around. Humph, does he really think he's a big deal? If he doesn't have a protector sword, I could crush him with a single finger. Who cares what bloodline he possesses? If he angers me, I'll kill him even if he's a direct descendant of a Grand Exalt. The other vice leaders all added secretly after Mo He. They were unwilling to yield to Gongsun Ji's rule. They would much rather leave with Xian Zhan. After all, not only was Xian Zhan the leader of the 8 vice leaders, but he was also a straightforward person that garnered respect. He was also a wielder of a protector sword, so the other vice leaders were completely willing to follow him. Xian Zhan shook his head gently. He stopped the vice leaders. He did not wish for the Radiant Saint Hall to just be torn apart like this. In 3 days, I, Gongsun Ji, will formally hold the ceremony for ascending to power. I will invite the leaders of all the major organizations on the desolate plain to celebrate with me. Afterwards, I will personally lead everyone to the cloud plain to take back the method of the exalted saint. Jian Chen remained within his residence in the Tian Yuan clan. He looked at an extremely beautiful flower that stood at only 2 meters tall before him with great eagerness. The flower was very special. It was not rooted to the ground. Instead, it hovered in the air, and its roots moved around and extended casually like living tendrils. They seemed to glisten with light, and they would emit powerful pulses of energy from time to time. It was evidently trying to conceal the energy to the best of its ability, but it was clearly unable to present itself in its most basic form. A sliver of energy would always leak out accidentally. The flower was the immortal devouring orchid that Jian Chen had been raising. Late God King already. It looks like the corpses of primordial realm experts really are great nourishment for you. If this continues, you'll probably break through again and reach the primordial realm before long, Jian Chen muttered to himself as he looked at the immortal devouring orchid. As if it could understand Jian Chen, the immortal devour flower unfurled every one of its petals like it was smiling in its own way. At the same time, it gave off a mental pulse that was filled with joy. Ever since it became a god king, the immortal devouring orchid could communicate mentally with Jian Chen. However, perhaps as a result of natural restrictions, it still could not assume a human form. Once you reach the primordial realm, you might be able to assist me, Jian Chen added. He became more and more eager about the future. The immortal devouring orchid grew at a rate that was far too astonishing. It was as if as long as it had sufficient nourishment, it could continue to grow without any obstruction. It was like no bottlenecks existed for it at all. Jian Chen had a strong feeling that the immortal devouring orchid really might be of great help to him in the future. It might surpass him with its current rate of growth. Moreover, this feeling became more and more intense as the immortal devouring orchid grew. The immortal devouring orchid swayed gently in the air. It bent down and nudged Jian Chen's arm gently. It seemed extremely close to Jian Chen. It was as if being able to help Jian Chen was the happiest thing it could do. A war is coming. I don't have time to accompany you. Work hard on cultivation. You've already consumed several infinite prime corpses. I think the effects of the infinite prime corpses will decrease once you reach the primordial realm. It looks like I need to prepare some corpses of chaotic primes for you, Jian Chen said softly. He said that easily, but if anyone else heard his words, they would be utterly frightened. Chaotic primes were basically all figures equivalent to great elders in any peak organization. They possessed great authority and exceptional abilities, yet he treated them as simply nourishment. The immortal devouring orchid wrapped around the 2 infinite prime corpses Jian Chen had given it before entering Jian Chen's water cloud hall. It continued to cultivate. After the immortal devouring orchid vanished, Jian Chen stood up and made his way out. He looked into the distance and murmured, "It looks like the 4 Symbols Alliance is about to do something major this time." Chapter 2590, Facing a Ruler. The peak experts of the 4 Symbols Alliance are on the move. I can sense the presence of 2 Grand Primes. They're making their way over here with the young Star Lord. As soon as he emerged from the residence, Su Ran appeared before Jian Chen and said sternly. The 2 Grand Primes have not concealed themselves. They've come with quite the scene, which is why I was able to sense them. It looks like the situation is far more severe than last time, Su Ran said sternly. Her expression was very ugly. She could not deal with Grand Primes yet. Even Su Ran felt powerless in the face of Grand Primes. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He stared at the eastern fortress of the Pingtian Empire and coldness flashed through his eyes. The eastern fortress of the Pingtian Empire was in ruins. The ground was uneven, littered with various holes of various sizes. These holes were craters left behind by the intense battle when the young Star Lord attacked the Pingtian Empire. The huge, majestic wall was like a huge dragon that had been cut in half. There was a gaping hole as it stood damaged. Quick, quick! Move some rocks there and fill up the hole, contact the group collecting rocks and get them to hurry up. Filling up these holes require a tremendous amount of materials. Quick, move all the waste collected from the fortress to the group for refining artifacts. The materials used to build the fortress are extraordinary. Don't waste them. The group can recycle or reuse them. There was no peace within the ruined eastern fortress at all. Various cries rang out in the surroundings. Instead, it seemed busy. Tens of thousands of cultivators were scattered about the fortress. Under the coordination of many group leaders, they cleaned up the battlefield and rebuilt everything. Such scenes were not limited to the eastern fortress. It was the same with the two other destroyed fortresses. In the years when Ming Dong watched over the Pingtian Empire, they developed extremely rapidly. Their accumulation of both wealth and heritage during those years was incomparable to the past. Even though their strength was nowhere close to the Blood Sun Empire, Shi Empire, and other everlasting empires that had stood for millions of years, they could endure the losses from a war or two. Boom! At this moment, a great rumble rang out. Powerful energy surged out, causing the entirety of the ground at the fortress stood on to shake. Dust was kicked into the air where cultivators gathered in groups. Wails constantly rang out. Moments before, powerful energy shot over from the sky, leading to a great explosion there. It took the lives of several dozen cultivators on the spot and injured even more people. The cultivators responsible for cleaning up the battlefield and the reconstruction were relatively weak. Most of them were at the origin realm, and only a tiny portion of them were at godhood. The energy that shot over from the sky had reached God King, so there would obviously be casualties. How dare you? Who has attacked our Pingtian Empire? A call rang out. A God King shot over with lightning speed. He unleashed his presence, enveloping the entire fortress. He was an early God King, an expert responsible for watching over the eastern fortress temporarily. 8 overgods stood behind him. Not a lot of experts were stationed here where a damaged fortress of the Pingtian Empire stood, as many God Kings were injured during the battle several days ago. Only an early God King was stationed here. Ha 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 ha, the Pingtian Empire actually wants to rebuild the fortress here. Have you asked for my permission? Thunderous laughter rang out from the horizon, echoing through the sky. A group of people steadily approached the Pingtian Empire from the horizon. The person at the very front was a handsome young man who only seemed to be in his 20s. He had a striking appearance and was haughty. He did not seem to take anyone seriously. He was the young Star Lord, Tianyao. An old woman and a middle-aged man followed behind the young Star Lord. Even though the two of them had concealed some of their presence, those with sharper senses could still feel a terrifying energy, enough to shake up the world, was hidden within their bodies. They were 2 of the 5 ancestors from the 4 Symbols Alliance, Gong Ji and Wu Lu. Behind them were experts of various levels from the 4 Symbols Alliance. Of course, these people actually belonged to Gong Ji and Wu Lu's organizations. Who are you? The God King's expression changed. He glanced past the cultivators behind the young Star Lord and could tell with a single glance that they were wearing the uniform of the 4 Symbols Alliance. The space above the fortress pulsed, and Jian Chen appeared silently along with Su Ran. Jian Chen was calm. As he faced the experts from the Four Symbols Alliance, he did not become flustered at all. He looked past the young Star Lord and stared at Wu Lu and Gong Ji behind him. Even the two of you have personally come. It looks like your Four Symbols Alliance is determined to become enemies with our Tian Yuan clan. Although the young Star Lord had led the people of the Four Symbols Alliance to attack the Pingtian Empire last time, all those people had changed their identities, and they had fought under a banner with 9 stars. They could place all the responsibility on the young Star Lord and distance themselves from the entire matter. But this time, they had directly come while wearing the uniform of the Four Symbols Alliance, allowing people to recognize them in a single glance. This clearly meant that the Four Symbols Alliance was formally opposing the Tian Yuan clan. They were becoming enemies. Our Four Symbols Alliance has already yielded to the Star Brilliance Mountain. The young Star Lord is our young master. We all obey him, Gong Ji said. She knew Jian Chen's composure came from the heavenly palace of Bisheng, so she mentioned the Star Brilliance Mountain. Only with the Star Brilliance Mountain did their Four Symbols Alliance become fearless of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. At the same time, the Gentle Breeze ancestor, Zheng Hu, and Changfeng Yun stood on a mountain in the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance, staring in the direction of the Pingtian Empire. Even though they were extremely far away from the Pingtian Empire, they could see the entire cloud plain with a single glance, let alone the southern region. The senses of Grand Prime Souls were powerful enough to envelop an entire plain. Sigh. Gong Ji and Wu Lu are far too impulsive. The Gentle Breeze ancestor sighed gently. He knew that now that all of this had happened, he could no longer stop them. He could no longer stop anything. Now, we can only hope that everything develops optimistically. Changfeng Yun felt extremely powerless as well. Let's watch on for now. Gong Ji and Wu Lu definitely have their reasons for making this decision. Benefits don't come without a cost, said Jing Wu. Internally, he agreed with Wu Lu and Gong Ji's thoughts to a certain degree. Chapter 2591, Confrontation with Composure, You all obey the young Star Lord. Jian Chen sneered and said, The young Star Lord wants to destroy my Tian Yuan clan. He wants to destroy the Pingtian Empire. Does your Four Symbols Alliance plan on taking part? Gong Ji said nothing. Wu Lu glanced at her before looking back at Jian Chen. A sliver of helplessness appeared in his eyes, and he said, Jian Chen, we know you have the heavenly palace of Bisheng backing you, but the heavenly palace of Bisheng is nowhere near as glorious as it was in the past. If you continue opposing the young Star Lord, even the heavenly palace of Bisheng won't be able to keep you safe. It's best if you give up on your pride and kneel and bow to the young Star Lord, admitting that you were wrong. You should beg for the young Star Lord's forgiveness. Ha, that's right. Jian Chen, kneel and bow your head. Admit your mistakes. If you satisfy me, I might spare you. The young Star Lord chuckled aloud. He was in high spirits, acting as if Jian Chen was done for. However, the young Star Lord sneered inside as killing intent surged. Jian Chen humiliated me like this, and he even killed my only servant. This grievance runs so deep that if I don't kill him, I'll never drop the matter. However, if I can embarrass him before I kill him, it'll be satisfying. However, the young Star Lord did not understand Jian Chen. Jian Chen was not the type of person to kneel and beg for forgiveness. He would rather die in battle than yield. Jian Chen could not be bothered to speak to the young Star Lord. He directly ignored him. Instead, he only looked at Wu Lu and Gong Ji and said, Our Tian Yuan clan never shows mercy to our opponents. If you regret and repent, it's still not too late. Without the heavenly palace of Bisheng, your Tian Yuan clan is actually nothing in our eyes, Wu Lu said gently. Her voice was taunting, as if she was scoffing at Jian Chen since he still could not see the situation he was in even now. The young Star Lord was immediately angered when he saw how Jian Chen ignored him. He snarled coldly and said, "If that's the case, I will make you watch the Ping Tian Empire and the Tian Yuan clan get destroyed before you while you can't do anything. I wonder what kind of expression you'll have when you feel so powerless." Towards the end, the young Star Lord could not help but laugh aloud. He was already confident about destroying the Tian Yuan clan. At that moment, he seemed to be able to see the despair and helplessness on Jian Chen's face, along with the sorrow when his own, beloved woman ended up in the arms of someone else. The young Star Lord stared at the depths of the Ping Tian Empire and said loudly, "People of the Tian Yuan clan, listen up. I am the young Star Lord from the Star Brilliance Plane. I am the only child of the Supreme Ruler of the Star Brilliance Plane, a renowned expert in the Saints' world, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. Your patriarch, Jian Chen, has offended me, and he has killed my servant. He has completely fallen out with me, so I will definitely destroy the Tian Yuan clan. It won't just be the Tian Yuan clan either. The Ping Tian Empire will be included as well. I will wipe it off the face of the cloud plane. However, I am not a bloodthirsty person. Considering that there are many innocent people in the Ping Tian Empire, I'll give you 3 days to flee the Ping Tian Empire. After those 3 days, I will have a bloodbath in the Ping Tian Empire and the Tian Yuan clan. No one will be spared." The young Star Lord's voice boomed out through the entire Ping Tian Empire. At that moment, everyone in the empire was alarmed, including the people in the Dong'an province. His voice tore through the protective formations of the Tian Yuan clan, echoing in the sky for quite some time. Jian Chen's face sank. He turned back and glanced in the direction of the Tian Yuan clan before looking at Wu Lu and Gong Ji who stood behind the young Star Lord. With the young Star Lord's cultivation, it was impossible for his voice to pass through the protective formations of the Tian Yuan clan and reach the interior. He could only do so because of Wu Lu and Gong Ji were secretly assisting him. Figures flickered behind Jian Chen. The 8 infinite prime protectors arrived behind Jian Chen from the Tian Yuan clan. They were all stern as they faced the uniformed experts of the Four Symbols Alliance fearfully. "Jian Chen!" A gentle call rang out from the distance. Shangguan Mu'er carried the zither of the demonic cry and appeared beside Jian Chen. She stared at the people with her enchanting eyes. Her face was cold. "Humph. You people who have been sitting on the fence the entire time, when Brother Ming Dong was here, you were really polite to our Tian Yuan clan, even saying that you were our best friends. And just how long since Brother Ming Dong's departure that your Four Symbols Alliance has begun drawing your swords against our Tian Yuan clan? You wretched people are utterly shameful." Newbies stood behind Jian Chen and shouted out. He spat at the people from the Four Symbols Alliance. By now, the upper echelon and the god kings of the Tian Yuan clan had all arrived behind Jian Chen. "Protector Shui, the Tian Yuan clan is truly facing destruction this time. I haven't heard of this young Star Lord before, but the 9 Brilliant Star Lord really is a supreme expert," Protector Qi said secretly from behind Jian Chen. Now that 2 ancestors from the Four Symbols Alliance had personally stood forward and brought many experts with them, Protector Qi immediately became rather pale from fright. He felt fearful. Protector Shui nodded. He was extremely stern. He said nothing in reply. The Tian Yuan clan is probably done for. Protector Shui, let's flee the Tian Yuan clan, Protector Qi said. Protector Shui only replied after a long moment of thought, "It's far too soon to make this decision. I believe in the Patriarch. I believe in the Tian Yuan clan. I know Jian Chen has things he can depend on, but the situation right now cannot be compared to the past. The Star Brilliance Mountain is no weaker than the heavenly palace of Bisheng. Moreover, the young Star Lord is the young master of the Star Brilliance Mountain. Although Min Dong possesses some status in the heavenly palace of Bisheng, can his status be greater than the young Star Lord? Protector Qi replied. Seeing how Protector Shui still did not waver, he just made up his mind and said, "Whatever, you can stay, but I'm leaving. Remaining here even when you know it's certain death is not a clever decision. I can't afford to lose my life over some benefits from the Tian Yuan clan." With that, Protector Qi immediately flew forward. He traveled far away from Jian Chen and said, "I, Qi Hui, formally leave the Tian Yuan clan. Although the Tian Yuan clan has offended Sir, Qi Hui, have never shown any disrespect to Sir. I hope you can spare me this time." "Ha ha ha, you can go. I'll spare you." The young Star Lord laughed aloud. Qi Hui rejoiced with that. He finally stopped worrying. He said loudly, "Sir is a forthright and righteous man. You have gained me admiration." With that, Qi Hui shot off, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Protector Qi's departure had a heavy impact on the upper echelon of the Tian Yuan clan. After all, he was one of the two most powerful protectors they had recruited. Now that he had left the Tian Yuan clan without any hesitation, many members of the upper echelon became heavy-hearted. Protector Qi. Protector Qi he sigh. Some protectors behind Jian Chen all revealed very ugly expressions. They all signed dejectedly as many of their eyes flickered with uncertainty. Humph. You all fear death. Even if you've reached the primordial realm, your future accomplishments will be extremely limited. Qing Yishuan stood forward in her azure clothes and said coldly. It's no problem. Jian Chen remained calm and composed. He did not show any negative emotions at all. For any organization to grow, they must undergo many dangerous challenges. What our Tian Yuan clan faces this time is indeed a huge disaster, but if we can make it through it, we will definitely rise up. If we fail, the Tian Yuan clan will cease to exist. Jian Chen looked back at the people behind him and said, "If you are unwilling to stay behind and fight alongside us, you can leave right now. I will not blame you." Chapter 2592, Powerful Reinforcements. With that, the light in the eyes of many protectors and god kings who were either recruited or joined of their own volition flickered. They either hesitated or were stuck in a great dilemma. However, this hesitation only lasted for a few seconds before a few god kings flew out from the crowd. They clasped their fists at Jian Chen and left the Tian Yuan clan without hesitation. More and more people left the Tian Yuan clan. Aside from god kings, there were many over-gods, gods, and even deities. As these people discussed among themselves secretly, they learnt of the young Star Lord's identity and background. After some consideration, they did not believe the Tian Yuan clan could survive the young Star Lord's wrath, so they chose to leave. "Guang Yun, are you leaving as well?" A stern voice rang out from behind Jian Chen. It came from an old man, one of the primordial realm protectors of the Tian Yuan clan. People called him Protector Xing. Jian Chen was familiar with Protector Xing. As a matter of fact, he had a rather deep impression of him because he was one of the 4 protectors who stopped him when he returned with Shangguan Moor. The 4 protectors were Protector Xing, Protector Bai, Protector Mei, and Protector Shui. The 4 of them always attended to the Tian Yuan clan. Out of all the protectors recruited by the clan, they were the primordial realm experts who had truly devoted their service to the clan and worked hard. The Guang Yun mentioned by Protector Xing was also a protector of the Tian Yuan clan. He was leaving. Guang Yun was a sturdy, middle-aged man. He looked back at Protector Xing and shook his head with a gentle sigh as he said, "That's the young Star Lord, the child of the 9 brilliant Star Lord. How can I dare to oppose him? Patriarch, apologies." Guang Yun clasped his fist towards Jian Chen apologetically before leaving without looking back again. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 8 protectors of the Tian Yuan clan left, causing quite a lot of the upper echelon to feel dejected. Everyone did not mind Guang Yun's departure too much. After all, even though he was a primordial realm expert, he was only a 2nd heavenly layer infinite prime. What truly disappointed everyone was Protector Qi's departure. Protector Qi was a 7th heavenly layer infinite prime, the same as Protector Shui. Only Su Ran and Jian Chen were more powerful than him in the Tian Yuan clan. However, before the pressure from the young Star Lord, the protectors who chose to leave were not just Qi Hui and Guang Yun. 2 more protectors announced that they would be leaving the Tian Yuan clan soon after Guang Yun. With that, the protectors of the Tian Yuan clan were directly reduced to 4. They were Protector Shui, Protector Xing, Protector Bai, and Protector Mei. The 4 of you aren't leaving? Jian Chen looked back at the 4 of them and asked calmly. I owe the Tian Yuan clan. I will stay behind to fight, but if I do end up dying, please look after the young master, Patriarch, Protector Shui said fearlessly. He was not afraid of death. As he said that, he passed his divine hull to Jian Chen. He said sternly, my clan's young master is in there. Jian Chen stared at Protector Shui for a while. He did not reply. Instead, he looked at Protector Xing, Protector Bai and Protector Mei. Protector Mei giggled. She yawned and stretched rather casually, giving off quite the charm. She looked at Jian Chen flirtatiously and giggled, I'm confident in the Patriarch. I believe the Patriarch has the ability to lead us through this crisis. The Tian Yuan clan will definitely rise up. If I become a protector that has gone through thick and thin with the clan, the Patriarch definitely won't forget about us once the Tian Yuan clan reigns over the plain. We believe in the Patriarch as well. Protector Xing and Protector Bai said enthusiastically as well. However, they were unsettled inside. They were unable to achieve Protector Mei's composure. Protector Mei, will the Tian Yuan clan really be able to survive this crisis? We're staying behind because of what you said, but we won't be reduced to corpses in the end, right? Protector Xing and Protector Bai asked carefully. I have no confidence in whether we can survive or not. We do face the young Star Lord this time after all. However, I don't sense any fear from the Patriarch. Instead, I can feel that an extremely heavy killing intent is building up. I believe the Patriarch has cards he has yet to play, Protector Mei replied. She carefully looked around and continued, most importantly, not a single person closest to the Patriarch has left. They're all here. With how much the Patriarch values his friends and family, why would he let these people just wait here for their deaths? Protector Xing and Protector Bai came to a realization. Their unsettled minds immediately calmed down. Good. 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 Jian Chen reiterated. Even though he was uncertain why the 4 of them had remained behind, maybe they truly wanted to survive with the clan, or perhaps they were just putting on a show, it was already more than enough at a time like this. Remaining behind meant offending the young Star Lord after all. Afterwards, there was a mass migration of people from both the Tian Yuan clan and Ping Tian Empire. People as great as protectors and as ordinary as guards and servants left the clan. In just a short half a day, the people in the Tian Yuan clan plummeted to less than a third of their original number. Across the Ping Tian Empire, all the provincial cities chose to leave as soon as possible. The short-range teleportation formations set up in the Ping Tian Empire constantly flickered as cultivators flooded the skies as black clouds. Patriarch, are we really just going to let them leave? If they stay, they'll be able to help out. A woman stepped forwards from the crowd behind Jian Chen. She wore comfortable clothes and held a whip in her hand. She was Qing Jingyun, an Origin Realm expert from the world of Forsaken Saints. In the past, she had come up to the Saints' world with their spirit king, Shenjian, and Jian Chen. She had witnessed the founding of the Tian Yuan clan, which also made her one of the oldest members of the upper echelon. Now, Qing Jingyun had become a god with the help of various heavenly resources. Even though this strength was almost nothing in the current Tian Yuan clan, her speed of growth was among the best of the best. After all, only a tiny fraction of people were true prodigies. It's not a problem. Getting them to leave will reduce the unneeded casualties once we start fighting, said Jian Chen. To another side, the young Star Lord hovered in the sky with a sunken face. He was in an extremely bad mood. He discovered that even though he had succeeded in his goal and made the Tian Yuan clan lose over 2/3 of their members, he still did not see a satisfying expression from Jian Chen's face. This was because Jian Chen remained calm the entire time. He did not become emotional at all. He did not waver at all, remaining as steady as a mountain. Like all of this was nothing in his eyes. As a result, the young Star Lord felt like everything he did was for nothing. It was dissatisfying. Humph, do it. Destroy the Tian Yuan clan. I want Jian Chen and Shangguan Mu alive. The young Star Lord snorted coldly. He no longer had the patience to wait any longer. He felt like everything he was doing was pointless from Jian Chen's reaction. Aren't we going to wait for 3 days? Oh, only half a day has passed, said Wu Lu. We're not waiting anymore, the young Star Lord said coldly. All right. Wu Lu said nothing more. He made his way over from behind the young Star Lord, and his presence skyrocketed. His gaze became extremely cold. This time, he planned on taking action personally to demonstrate his loyalty to the cause to the young Star Lord. Young Star Lord, didn't you say you would give everyone 3 days to leave? It hasn't even been a single day. Is the foster son of the mighty Nine Brilliant Star Lord someone who eats his words? Jian Chen. Secretly, his martial soul force had already begun surging. He was about to contact the martial soul mountain. The young Star Lord did not reply. Wu Lu was ready to fight. With a single thought, the sky above the Dong'an province surged. A great gale appeared and devastating energy began charging up, causing space to distort and collapse. With Wu Lu's cultivation as a grand prime, he did not even have to move a single finger to destroy an empire. He only needed to stand there and control the energy and laws in the surroundings with his terrifying will. However, at this moment, an even more powerful will collided heavily against Wu Lu's will from a great distance away in a vicious manner. Wu Lu grunted and could not help but stagger back. The energy above the Dong'an province immediately fell into disorder before dispersing completely. The devastating attack that Wu Lu was about to launch had been forcefully interrupted by another peak expert. At the same time, a few figures appeared in the air. They had come silently, standing in the sky as if they were part of the world. They directly appeared between Jian Chen and the young Star Lord. Chapter 2593, The battle erupts. The appearance of the figures immediately caused Wu Lu and Gong Ji's expressions change. Even as experts who stood at the apex of the plane, they became extremely stern at that moment. Jian Chen, who was just about to call for the martial soul mountain, was surprised by their sudden arrival as well. The light in his eyes flickered as he looked at the people who stood with their backs towards him. He was slightly surprised, and after a moment of hesitation, he was no longer in such a hurry to call for the martial soul mountain. Why, you've crossed the boundary, righteous alliance. This is the territory of our Four Symbols alliance. Gong Ji took a step forward from behind the young Star Lord. She gave off a surging presence as she bellowed furiously with her raspy voice. Righteous alliance, do you plan on going back on your word about the ceasefire we agreed on? Wu Lu and Gong Ji stood together as they faced the group with sunken faces. Wu Lu and Gong Ji faced a total of 7 figures. They varied in age and appearance. They were the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. The ancestor of the cosmic sect, Zhou Zhidao. The ancestor of the God's Fallen clan, Luo Mantian. The ancestor of the Fire God clan, Lai Yan Wuji. The ancestor of the Tong family, Tong Wuming. Aside from the 5 of them, the 2 others were the ancestors of the Righteous Alliance who rarely showed themselves. They were the ancestor of the Daoist sect of emergence, Heidao, and the ancestor of the heaven-quaking sect, Guli. Heidao was a scholarly, middle-aged man. He seemed rather refined, just like a well-educated man of talent. As for Guli, he was an extremely burly man. He was bare-chested and covered with distinct, large, bronze muscles that were filled with explosive power. It was quite a sight. This time, the 7 peak experts of the Righteous Alliance had gathered here. All of them had come. They placed a very great pressure on the Four Symbols Alliance. After all, the Four Symbols Alliance was nowhere near as powerful as the Righteous Alliance. They still existed because the peak experts of the Righteous Alliance had never managed to reach a complete agreement. None of them wanted to pay the heavy price required to destroy the Four Symbols Alliance. They all wanted to keep themselves safe, which was why the Four Symbols Alliance could still exist. People from the Righteous Alliance, why have all of you come? Do you plan to engage in a bloody battle with our Four Symbols Alliance? A voice rang out. 3 figures appeared behind Wu Lu and Gong Ji. The 3 other peak experts of the Four Symbols Alliance, the Gentle Breeze ancestor, Changfeng Yun, and Zheng Hu, had arrived together. Although the Gentle Breeze ancestor did not really agree with Wu Lu and Gong Ji's actions, they needed to remain united now that all the experts of the Righteous Alliance had come, or their defeat would be inevitable. As for the Tian Yuan clan, everyone was startled. They showed excitement. The Righteous Alliance was clearly standing on their side. At an urgent moment like this, they saw hope once again now that they had gained the support of the Righteous Alliance. Their eyes immediately lit back up. Fantastic! I never thought the Righteous Alliance would stand with the Tian Yuan clan. Protector Mei, Protector Xing, and Protector Bai celebrated inside as well. Even though the Righteous Alliance was still not enough to overcome the young Star Lord, they were more than enough to deal with the Four Symbols Alliance. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak stood in the air with his hands behind his back. He glanced past the young Star Lord before looking at the 5 ancestors. He said slowly, the Tian Yuan clan is a friend of our Righteous Alliance. If you plan on laying your hands on them, our Righteous Alliance will never just stand by and watch. Humph, in other words, your Righteous Alliance is going to help the Tian Yuan clan? The young Star Lord snorted coldly. Although he was just a God King, he felt no fear as he faced the 7 peak experts of the Righteous Alliance. Instead, he was condescending. He glared at the 7 peak experts and said arrogantly, if you oppose me, there will only be one fate awaiting you, death. Humph, what impudence! Luo Mantian's eyes turned cold. He gave off a terrifying presence, shaking up the surroundings. It caused the thick layer of clouds in the sky to scatter. He extended a finger, and a beam of pure energy immediately shot out. It headed directly towards the young Star Lord. The beam of energy was not powerful. It could only heavily injure God Kings. It could not kill them. Clearly, Luo Mantian only wanted to punish the young Star Lord with this strike, causing him to suffer a little. Luo Mantian. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak and the ancestors of the Fire God clan, Tong family, and Cosmic sect called out. They all thought that Luo Mantian was acting far too reckless. It was not like he did not know who the young Star Lord was. How could he just attack him? Seeing how Luo Mantian launched an attack from just the slightest disagreement, and he even targeted the young Star Lord, Jian Chen frowned as well. He felt like Luo Mantian's actions did not make much sense. After all, The young Star-Lord was the 9 brilliant Star-Lord's son. Attacking the young Star-Lord, regardless of whether there was any intention to kill, would mean offending the 9 brilliant Star-Lord. From the moment we chose to assist the Tian Yuan clan, we've already offended the young Star-Lord. Since that has already happened, why must we act so cowardly? Why don't we act more straightforwardly and completely stand with the Tian Yuan clan, and then we find a way to ally ourselves with the heavenly palace of Bisheng through the Tian Yuan clan? Otherwise, our righteous alliance will be destroyed sooner or later, Luo Mantian said to the others secretly. How dare you? Luo Mantian, do you know who the young Star-Lord is? You're actually attacking him, Gong Ji yelled out furiously from beside the young Star-Lord. She waved her hand and dispersed Luo Mantian's weak attack. Gong Ji, go kill Luo Mantian for me. Take this jade talisman. There's a secret technique from our Star Brilliance mountain within it. The young Star-Lord's face sank, and he passed a jade talisman to Gong Ji. Gong Ji was originally hesitant because if they really started fighting, they would not have any advantages over the Righteous Alliance at all. Not only did the Righteous Alliance possess 7 peak experts, but they also had the greatest expert of the Cloud Plane, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. However, when she accepted the jade talisman from the young Star-Lord, a strange light immediately flickered through her eyes. A secret technique from the Star Brilliance mountain really is extraordinary. Luo Mantian, die. With that, Gong Ji directly charged at Luo Mantian. Humph, let's fight in outer space. Luo Mantian snorted coldly and charged towards outer space. Gong Ji followed him without saying anything more. The presences of grand primes radiated outwards, causing the stars to surge. The terrifying pulses of energy caused even space to collapse. Luo Mantian and Gong Ji engaged in an earth-shaking battle in outer space. Terrifying pulses of energy and devastating presences swept out, making the expressions of the members of the Tian Yuan clan change despite the distance. Even if just a tiny sliver of the energy struck the plane, it would be enough to annihilate an entire region. Luo Mantian and Gong Ji have already begun fighting. Why don't we use this opportunity to destroy the 4 Symbols Alliance in a single stroke so that they won't pose any potential future problems to us anymore? Gu Li said suddenly. Killing intent shone brightly in his eyes as he called out, Wu Lu, our battle last time still hasn't ended. With that, Gu Li directly threw a punch at Wu Lu. The punch contained extremely great force. It was capable of destroying everything. It reduced the origin energy in the surroundings to its most basic form as the air produced deep rumbles. Gu Li was an expert who had grasped the laws of strength. The laws of strength were similar to the laws of the sword. They were both laws that possessed the greatest offensive power. Wu Lu did not take the attack on forcefully. He vanished with a flash, charging towards outer space. He engaged in an intense battle with Gu Li beyond the plane. I'll go assist Luo Mantian in killing Gong Ji. Let's eliminate the 4 Symbols Alliance for good this time. He Dao said before charging into outer space as well. Chapter 2594, The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak heavily injured in the blink of an eye, 3 grand primes from the Righteous Alliance, Luo Mantian, Gu Li, and He Dao, began fighting with Wu Lu and Gong Ji in outer space. The terrifying energy was extremely devastating, sweeping through the sky and blotting out the sun. It made all the stars dim as space constantly shattered and subsequently repaired itself. This had all happened too quickly. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak could not stop them even if he wanted to. The grand primes of the 2 alliances had clashed many times when the Cloud Plane was in turmoil, where they attempted many times to destroy the 4 Symbols Alliance. However, the 4 Symbols Alliance was different now. With the support of the young Star-Lord, even the Righteous Alliance had to be rather wary of them. Since they've done this already, we might as well follow through with it completely. Let's destroy the Four Symbols Alliance in a single stroke, or our righteous alliance will be in trouble once they really obtain the support of the Star Brilliance Mountain, Tom Wuming said secretly. That's right. If we don't destroy the Four Symbols Alliance now, we'll probably lose the opportunity forever. After all, the young Star Lord is already standing with the Four Symbols Alliance, while whether we can obtain the protection of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng is still unknown, Zhou Zhidao added. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak stared at the battle in outer space before nodding slowly in the end. Fair enough. But since we've decided to destroy the Four Symbols Alliance, I hope that everyone can unleash their full strength without holding back this time. Don't worry. It's an extremely urgent time right now. If anyone still holds back like before at a time like this, they'll be digging their own grave. Once the Four Symbols Alliance recovers and gains the support of the Star Brilliance Plane, our righteous alliance will be reduced to nothing with our measly strength, said Zhou Zhidao. The experts of the Righteous Alliance communicated secretly. The words that they exchanged and the decision that they reached were only known by the seven of them. In the next moment, the other Grand Primes from the Righteous Alliance moved as well, engaging in a battle against the Gentle Breeze ancestor, Changfeng Yun, and Zheng Hu. Immediately, deafening booms rang out in outer space like thunder. The entire cloud plain shook violently in the distance. This was a battle between 12 Grand Primes. It was truly devastating. The sky cracked region by region while the tremendous outer space collapsed part by part as well. Countless spatial cracks interwove with one another, forming a dense web. Violent storms of energy swept through outer space with a chaotic, brutal presence. After so many years of peace, the peak experts of the two alliances began fighting again. However, the battle this time was far more intense than any other time. Unlike the previous fights, the experts from the Righteous Alliance all unleashed their true strength, engaging in a battle to the death against the Four Symbols Alliance. As a result, the Four Symbols Alliance completely lost the upper hand as soon as the battle began. They were basically completely forced into a reactive state by the Righteous Alliance and were only able to defend. After all, not only did the Righteous Alliance possess the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, the greatest expert of the Cloud Plane, but they had 7 people as well. On the other hand, not only did the Four Symbols Alliance possess no one who could match up to the Peak Lord, but Zheng Hu was also basically the weakest Grand Prime out of all of them. After all, Zheng Hu had only broken through to Grand Prime recently, so he was basically the weakest a Grand Prime could be. He did not have any aspects that stood out, nor was he a prodigy who could challenge those stronger than him. Everyone from the Tian Yuan clan stared at outer space. A battle between 12 Grand Primes was basically an outstanding event. It would not happen even across millions of years. Even though very few of them could see it clearly, they were still shocked and they saw the colorful sky filled with exploding energy. Don't tell me the Four Symbols Alliance can't even make it past the Righteous Alliance. Su Ran stood beside Jian Chen and gloated over their suffering. She could obviously tell that the Four Symbols Alliance was at an absolute disadvantage. The difference is far too great. They're on completely different levels. It really isn't difficult for the Righteous Alliance to destroy the Four Symbols Alliance if they use their full strength. However, if the people from the Four Symbols Alliance put up a desperate struggle or maybe even sacrifice themselves, they might be able to injure or kill 1 or 2 people from the Righteous Alliance. Even though Su Ran was not a Grand Prime, she was someone who came from the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng after all. Her insight was extraordinary. Jian Chen remained silent the entire time. He would observe the battle in outer space at times and would look at the young Star Lord at other times. A frown gradually appeared on his face. From the very start, the young Star Lord remained calm as if victory was within his grasp. Jian Chen felt that something was off from how composed he was. It was like the Four Symbols Alliance had a card that they had yet to play. At this moment, the tremendous might of the world appeared. Gong Ji fought against Luo Mantian and He Dao alone, so she had already begun to struggle against their attacks. She was forced to use a God-tier battle skill. This was a high-grade God-tier battle skill, one that only Grand Primes could grasp under normal circumstances. When she used it, there was a slight sense that it had fused with the ways of the world. In the end, the God-tier battle skill turned into a streak of blinding light, striking Luo Mantian with great force. Spurt. Blood sprayed from Luo Mantian's mouth, and he paled. He shot back quickly like a cannonball. Luo Mantian. He Dao's face changed as he fought alongside him. He immediately gave up on Gong Ji and flew towards Luo Mantian. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak just happened to be close to Luo Mantian as he fought the Gentle Breeze ancestor. When he saw Luo Mantian fly over with his wounds, he immediately knocked the Gentle Breeze ancestor away with a single strike. Afterwards, he extended his hand and caught Luo Mantian with a great but gentle power. He asked out of concern, "Luo Mantian, are you fine?" Luo Mantian coughed up blood. As soon as he said that, something happened. A dagger that flickered with dark green light silently appeared in his hand. It struck out with lightning speed like a venomous snake. Everything had happened far too quickly. Coupled with how the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak was completely unprepared, Luo Mantian's sneak attack was successful. The dagger stabbed right into his waist. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak produced a grunt. His eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. Afterwards, he used his hand to directly strike out mercilessly towards Luo Mantian's head with great power and laws. In that instant, Luo Mantian's presence surged. He seemed nowhere close to being injured. He struck out with both hands, colliding with the Lord of Heaven's Link Peak attack. With a rumble, he was sent flying as blood sprayed from his mouth. This time, he was spraying blood for real. "Luo Mantian, what are you doing?" Peak Lord, He Dao's expression changed drastically, and he cried out in shock. He arrived before the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak in a flash. "Luo Mantian, have you gone crazy?" "Peak Lord, are you fine?" Gu Li, who had been fighting against Wu Lu, bellowed out and immediately abandoned his opponent, approaching the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. The sudden change in the situation had disrupted the entire battlefield. At the same time, Lian Wuji, Zhou Zhidao, and Tong Wuming all stopped fighting. They all called out and hurried towards the Peak Lord. "Luo Mantian, why did you do this?" The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak clutched his wound. The blood dyed his white robes red as his face and all of his skin gradually turned a faint green. His old eyes were filled with pain as he stared right at Luo Mantian. "Peak Lord, heal up first." He Dao and Gu Li arrived beside the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak first. As they fought the closest to the Peak Lord, they were faster than the other three. But at this moment, something else happened. He Dao and Gu Li suddenly launched attacks. A sword and a fist struck out at the same time, coming in from the left and the right, striking the Peak Lord's body viciously. He Dao's sword stabbed through the Peak Lord's left waist, emerging from the right as it shone brightly. Gu Li's punch, imbued with the laws of strength, struck the Peak Lord's back, causing his back to collapse into his chest. The fist became covered in blood. Chapter 2595, The Tides Turn. Everything had happened far too quickly. From Luo Mantian's sneak attack to Gu Li and He Dao's combined attacks, all of it transpired in a split second. It did not even take a moment. The three of them launched sudden sneak attacks when the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak was unprepared, so they immediately inflicted unimaginable injuries to him. These wounds were even life-threatening. After all, whether it be Luo Mantian, Gu Li, or He Dao, they were all Grand Primes. Every single strike from them was devastating, and they had struck the defenseless Peak Lord with terrifying power. The destructive impact of the attacks on the Peak Lord was evident. Immediately, the Lord of the Heavens, Lord Peak, who was known as the greatest expert of the Cloud Plane, faced tremendous danger. To another side, the expressions of Tong Wuming, Lian Wuji, and Zhou Zhidao suddenly changed. They stared at the sword in the Peak Lord and the fist that had collapsed his back as they felt like the world around them was spinning. They felt like the sky was collapsing. At that moment, how could they not understand? Luo Mantian of the God's Fallen clan, He Dao of the Daoist sect of Emergence, and Gu Li of the Heaven-Quaking sect had all betrayed the Righteous Alliance. Moreover, they had done so at such a critical moment, dealing a fatal strike to the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak while he was unaware. Luo Mantian, He Dao, Gu Li, you all should die. The ancestor of the Fire God clan, Lian Wuji, had always been the person with the shortest temper. Their betrayal had completely infuriated him. Flames suddenly surged from his body, sweeping through the entire region. It caused the space to constantly distort as the temperature there suddenly skyrocketed. At that moment, the heat from Lian Wuji was thousands of times greater than the sun. The fire transformed into 3 dragons, directly charging towards Luo Mantian, He Dao, and Gu Li. At the same time, Tong Wuming and Zhou Zhidao struck out without any hesitation either. They both gave up on their original opponents and attacked the 3 of them from afar. At the same time, they quickly approached the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. However, as the space there had become unstable from their battle, their speed was inhibited, so they approached the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak rather slowly. They were nowhere near as fast as Luo Mantian and the others. Otherwise, they would have been able to reach the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak in a single step. The Gentle Breeze ancestor, Zheng Hu, and Chang Fengyun stopped fighting as well. The twist with the Righteous Alliance had stunned the 3 of them. They stared at the people from the Righteous Alliance with their brows furrowed. They were rather puzzled. Only Wu Lu and Gong Ji, who knew the inside story, were filled with vigor. They looked at the Righteous Alliance that had turned on themselves as they took joy in the whole matter. Gentle Breeze, what is happening? Chang Yangfeng asked the Gentle Breeze ancestor secretly. He was at a loss. Can't you tell now? Luo Mantian, He Dao, and Gu Li of the Righteous Alliance have all joined the young Star Lord, said Gong Ji. At the same time, she tossed the jade talisman that the young Star Lord had given her to the 3 of them. They caught the jade talisman and discovered that it did not contain a secret technique from the Star Brilliance Mountain at all. There was only a message from the young Star Lord, basically telling Gong Ji to cooperate with Luo Mantian to put on a show and get the peak experts of the Righteous Alliance to start fighting so that they could find an opportunity to launch a sneak attack on the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak was a peak 3rd heavenly layer Grand Prime after all. He was more powerful than anyone else on the Cloud Plane. It was very difficult for regular sneak attacks to succeed. An opportunity would only present itself during the chaos of battle. I see, Cheng Fengyun and Zheng Hu both came to a realization. Immediately, their gazes towards the people of the Righteous Alliance changed. It was no longer as stern as before. From today onwards, the Righteous Alliance will cease to exist on the Cloud Plane, Zheng Hu said in amazement. Out of the 7 peak experts of the Righteous Alliance, 3 of them had switched sides. The only ones that remained were the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, Tong Wuming, Lian Wuji, and Zhou Zhidao. Moreover, the Peak Lord was heavily injured, so his strength was greatly inhibited. On the other hand, their 4 Symbols Alliance had gained 3 traitors, amounting to a total of 8 people. They now possessed an absolute advantage. Why do you do this? The Peak Lord's face was rather gloomy. Chunks of his skin had already changed in color, but he paid no concern to his wounds. Instead, he looked at Luo Mantian, Gu Li, and He Dao in great pain. The Righteous Alliance is done for. We only chose a path that would allow us to exist, Gu Li said calmly. He showed no regret or shame at all. Instead, there was just coldness and indifference. Afterwards, he and He Dao immediately retreated, pulling far away from the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. They understood the strength of the Peak Lord extremely well. He was a supreme expert who could face the heavenless demon Exalt, a grand prime who had broken through to the fourth heavenly layer, in battle. Even though he was heavily injured, he still posed a great threat to them. At the same time, Lian Wuji's 3 scorching dragons, condensed from the laws of fire, arrived and wrapped around the 3 of them. I'll burn you 3 traitors to a crisp. Lian Wuji called out. The laws of fire condensed in the surroundings, becoming more and more powerful. Boom! At this moment, a rumble rang out. Luo Mantian broke free from Lian Wuji's flame dragon first, tearing it to pieces with terrifying energy. Afterwards, the dagger in his hand flew out, gently touching the dragons around He Dao and Gu Li. The fire dragons immediately weakened like deflating balloons before being torn to pieces by the 2 of them. Immediately, the 3 of them broke free successfully. However, aside from Luo Mantian, Gu Li and He Dao were in sorry shape. Large areas of their skin had been charred, and their faces were blackened. Lian Wuji really is powerful. He really is a second heavenly layer Grand Prime after all, Gu Li glanced at his charred arm and murmured. Among the 3 of them, only Luo Mantian was at the second heavenly layer. He and He Dao were both at the first heavenly layer. Naturally, they would struggle a little to fend off Lian Wuji's furious attack. So what if he's at the second heavenly layer? He'll be dead very soon, He Dao said calmly before arriving on the side of the 4 Symbols alliance with Gu Li and Luo Mantian. They stood there coldly. Lian Wuji, Tong Wuming, and Zhou Zhidao did not chase them. Instead, they arrived at the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak side together. All of their faces were extremely ugly. It's the power of a curse. Luo Mantian, why, you really are vicious, Tong Wuming stared at the Peak Lord's green skin and said in pain. He was furious. He could tell with a single glance that the true wound that was fatal to the Peak Lord did not come from He Dao and Gu Li but the power of a curse from Luo Mantian's dagger. The power of the curse was the greatest threat. It was like a venomous snake, constantly poisoning the Peak Lord such that his life force would be sapped away at every moment. Compared to the power of the curse, the wounds that He Dao and Gu Li caused were not very severe at all. The power of the curse is very powerful. It's a curse from a 4th heavenly layer Grand Prime at the very least, Lian Wuji said extremely sternly. Chapter 2596, The Martial Soul Mountain descends. Tong Wuming and Zhou Zhidao's faces both became ugly as they watched the curse rapidly spread and deepen on the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak's body. The curse had surpassed the level of laws that they had grasped. As a result, the 3 of them were powerless against the curse on the Peak Lord. Curses were extremely difficult to deal with. Nullifying them required an expert who had also comprehended the laws of curses to use their own laws to slowly remove it. At the same time, the level of the curse that the Peak Lord had been inflicted with required a late Grand Prime who had comprehended the laws of curses at the very least to nullify. If one's comprehension of the laws of curses was too low, it would be like an ant attacking an elephant. Nothing would happen at all. Of course, they could also find a supreme expert who was far more powerful than the owner of the curse, using their stronger power of laws to forcefully disperse the curse and save the Peak Lord. However, not a single person present fulfilled either condition to nullify the curse. It's no problem. The curse was only embedded on a god artifact. Its power was reduced, so it can't threaten my life immediately, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak said rather feebly. He had received sneak attacks from Luo Mantian, Gu Li, and He Dao. Not only was he heavily injured, but he even had to devote a major portion of his power to suppress the curse. As a result, he would probably struggle to even use 30% of his full power. The wounds to the body could be dealt with using high-grade pills, but he had to personally suppress the curse. I really never thought that Gu Li, He Dao, and Luo Mantian would actually betray the Righteous Alliance and work with the Four Symbols Alliance. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak let out a long sigh. He felt melancholic. It looks like our Righteous Alliance will fall to the crisis this time. Peak Lord, you're wrong. We're not working with the Four Symbols Alliance. Instead, we chose to follow the young Star Lord, Luo Mantian said indifferently from the other side. He felt no shame at all. Just by saying he was following the young Star Lord, he rendered his grievances with the Four Symbols Alliance null. Peak Lord, I must admit that you were once very wise in the past, but you've made a mistake this time. You shouldn't have supported the Tian Yuan clan. After all, the Tian Yuan clan only has some connection to the heavenly palace of Bishan through Ming Dong. Even though Ming Dong possesses some status in the heavenly palace of Bishan, how can he match the young Star Lord? At most, Ming Dong is the First Majesty's disciple. However, the young Star Lord is the child of the Nine Brilliant Star Lord. Just that is something Ming Dong can never match up to, said Gu Li. The laws of strength revolved around him as his beefy muscles hit explosive power. His burn wounds rapidly recovered. And most importantly, a true sovereign stands behind the Nine Brilliant Star Lord. That's an existence who has fused with the heavenly ways. He can interfere with the operation of the ways with his will and is a ruler of an entire world. As for the heavenly palace of Bishan, they only have the First Majesty. How can the heavenly palace of Bishan match up to the Star Brilliance mountain like this? He Dao added. As soon as he mentioned the sovereign, his eyes were filled with evident respect and admiration. He knew that this so-called sovereign had only taken one extra step from the ninth heavenly layer of Grand Prime, which still made them a Grand Prime, but this step was almost impossible to take. That single step made all the difference. Righteous Alliance, ever since the Tian Empire was destroyed, we've always been in conflict. After so many years of conflict, we can finally end it all, Gong Ji said from the side of the Four Symbols Alliance. Her deep eyes showed no reluctance at all. Instead, it was filled with coldness and killing intent. What are we saying so much for? Let's do it together and destroy them sooner. From today onwards, the Cloud Plain will be under our Four Symbols Alliance's control, said Wu Lu. He was rather eager and slightly excited. Their Four Symbols Alliance could complete the ambitious wish that the Tian Empire had failed to accomplish. The Gentle Breeze ancestor said nothing. He continued to frown as he hovered in the sea of stars silently. He would glance past the three experts who had betrayed the Righteous Alliance from time to time as the light in his eyes flickered. Luo Mantian, He Dao, and Gu Li's betrayal had completely surprised him. However, their betrayal and decision to yield to the young Star Lord made the Gentle Breeze ancestor feel very conflicted. Their Four Symbols Alliance had already developed deep grievances with the Righteous Alliance, and it was to the point where they could no longer reconcile. Gong Ji and Wu Lu could ignore the past and forget about the grievances, but others were not able to be as broad-minded as them. Just how many people and organizations below them would be willing to forget this hatred? Chang Fengyun and Zheng Hu remained silent as well. Clearly, they struggled to accept the three of them. After all, many of the outstanding descendants and disciples from their clans and sects had died to the God's Fallen Clan, Heaven-Quaking Sect, and Taoist Sect of Emergence. This was not something that could be resolved in a few words. After all, not everyone could be as forgiving as Gong Ji and Wu Lu. As if she had guessed their thoughts, Gong Ji said to the Gentle Breeze ancestor, Chang Fengyun, and Zheng Hu secretly, our priority is to destroy the Righteous Alliance. As for Luo Mantian and the other two, the young Star Lord won't always remain on the cloud plane. Once the situation on the cloud plane stabilizes, we can come up with plenty of methods to deal with them. What, why have you all stopped? Why don't you hurry up and kill the people of the Righteous Alliance? Only death awaits those who oppose me. At this moment, the young Star Lord flew up from the cloud plane as well. He was complacent as if victory was within his grasp. 2 chaotic primes accompanied the young Star Lord. They were responsible for his safety to prevent any accidents from happening when the experts of the two alliances clashed. After the battle between the Grand Primes came to a halt, Jian Chen and Su Ran arrived in outer space as well. They arrived beside the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. Peak Lord, you wound, Jian Chen stared at the power of the curse on the Peak Lord. He was stern. He had also comprehended the laws of curses, but his comprehension still remained at early God King. As a result, he could clearly sense just how powerful the curse on the Peak Lord was. That was the power of laws from a Grand Prime. It's not life-threatening for now. It's our defeat this time. Hurry up and order a retreat. We have to give up on the cloud plane, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak said secretly. Now that the Four Symbols Alliance had 8 experts, the Righteous Alliance had no chance at victory with just Lian Wuji, Tong Wuming, and Zhou Zhidao. They did not possess an expert who could overwhelm multiple opponents of the same level. The Gentle Breeze Ancestor is a 3rd heavenly layer Grand Prime. Even though he only broke through 2 centuries ago, only our Lord of the Heavens Link Peak can defeat him. We can only retreat now, Tong Wuming sighed gently. They were powerless to reverse the situation. Senior, it's far too soon to say that. We still don't know who will be victorious in this battle, said Jian Chen. He was calm and very composed. Afterwards, he looked at the young Star Lord and said, "You are celebrating too soon. Do you really think you can kill me with just the Four Symbols Alliance?" With that, the landscape nearby suddenly twisted. The stars vanished, and the figure of a colossal mountain silently appeared. The mountain was humongous. It could blot out the sky and block all the starlight. It rapidly consolidated from its blurry image. In the end, it seemed to become tangible, appearing in outer space silently just like that. It had arrived near the cloud plane like a ghost. That's, whether it be the Righteous Alliance or the Four Symbols Alliance, they were both stunned when they saw the mountain that suddenly appeared. The colossal mountain had arrived far too suddenly. They actually failed to sense its approach at all. They had no idea where the mountain had come from. It was as if the mountain had been hidden there the entire time and was only showing itself just then. That seems to be the legendary Martial Soul Mountain. The Gentle Breeze Ancestor stared right at the mountain as he exclaimed sternly. The Martial Soul Mountain was an object of legends in the Saints' world. Many experts had only heard about it before. There were not many who had seen it. In the vast Saints' world, the Martial Soul Mountain was not fixed to a single location. It drifted through the boundless outer space. It was very difficult for outsiders who were not successors of the Martial Soul lineage to find any traces of it. As a result, the Martial Soul Mountain was legendary to many Grand Primes. What? The Martial Soul Mountain? Is this the Martial Soul Mountain? The Martial Soul Mountain is the symbol of the Martial Soul lineage. Since the Martial Soul Mountain has appeared here, the Martial Soul lineage has arrived on our cloud plane. A few people cried out from the Four Symbols Alliance. All of them were very unfamiliar with regards to the Martial Soul Mountain, but they had heard quite a lot of rumors about the Martial Soul lineage. The Martial Soul lineage was an extremely unique legacy in the vast Saints world. Even though they only possessed a measly number of people, no one dared to underestimate them. That was because every successor of the Martial Soul lineage possessed extremely great battle prowess. Challenging those at greater cultivation levels was like a day-to-day affair for them. Many supreme prodigies painstakingly raised by large sects and organizations would completely pale in comparison to any successor of the martial soul lineage. They were the symbol of invincibility among the same level of cultivation. Ever triumphant, they were truly impossible existences who could rival successors of grand exalts. Why has the martial soul mountain come to our cloud plain? Gong Ji mumbled. She was puzzled. Afterwards, she glanced past Jian Chen and said in uncertainty, "Is it because?" Chapter 2597, 8th Junior Brother. Has Jian Chen asked the martial soul lineage to come? Impossible. How does Jian Chen have connections with the martial soul lineage? Gong Ji refused to accept this. The Gentle Breeze ancestor, Changfeng Yun, Zhenghu, Wu Lu, Luo Mantian, He Dao, and Gu Li all stared at the martial soul mountain that had suddenly appeared in surprise and doubt. The light in their eyes flickered with uncertainty. Not a single peak expert on the cloud plain, whether they be from the Righteous Alliance or the Four Symbols Alliance, knew about Jian Chen's relationship with the martial soul lineage. The cloud plain was one of the weakest among the 49 great plains of the saints' world. The information they received was limited. It was impossible for them to know everything that happened in the vast saints' world. Only the young Star Lord knew many things about Jian Chen. He knew Jian Chen was the 8th successor of the martial soul lineage. However, the young Star Lord was not worried about the martial soul lineage. "Humph, what are you afraid of? They're just the martial soul lineage. What's there to worry about? If they offend me and my foster father takes action, they won't be able to avoid destruction even if they hide on the martial soul mountain," the young Star Lord said arrogantly. He was completely fearless with the 9 brilliant Star Lords supporting him. The martial soul lineage truly posed no threat to the Star Brilliance Mountain. The experts of the Tian Yuan clan faced the armies of the Four Symbols Alliance beyond the fortresses of the Ping Tian Empire on the Cloud Plain. All the primordial realm experts from both sides stared at outer space. The battle between the Grand Primes was just too intense, so they could not approach it with the senses of their souls. However, that did not mean they could not watch it with their eyes. Luo Mantian, Gu Li, and He Dao's betrayal shocked both sides. No one had expected such a great twist to happen. As a result, the Righteous Alliance that originally possessed the upper hand was at a disadvantage now. The Righteous Alliance is done for. I never thought the God's Fallen Clan, the Taoist sect of emergence, and the Heaven-quaking sect would actually betray them. With their betrayal, the Righteous Alliance is truly done for. The Righteous Alliance is about to be destroyed. Chaotic primes of the Four Symbols Alliance laughed aloud. They were in great spirits. In the past, the Righteous Alliance had always weighed on their chests to the point of suffocation because they understood the strength of the Righteous Alliance. With what the Four Symbols Alliance possessed, they were not the Righteous Alliance's opponents at all. Once the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak broke through, their Four Symbols Alliance would face destruction. It was perfect now. There was actually internal strife within the Righteous Alliance, dooming them in an instant. All the experts from the Four Symbols Alliance celebrated over this. On the side of the Tian Yuan clan, Protector Shui, Protector Mei, Protector Xing, and Protector Bai's expressions were extremely ugly. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak was heavily injured, and the betrayal made them feel like the world was ending. Look, a mountain has suddenly appeared in outer space. It's such a colossal mountain, and it's actually completely condensed from energy. Just how much energy is that? Suddenly, a chaotic prime great elder cried out from within the base of the Four Symbols Alliance. Immediately, the martial soul mountain that had arrived silently was exposed before everyone. Due to the great distance, the colossal mountain only seemed as large as a sesame seed to everyone. That's the martial soul mountain. Why has the martial soul mountain come here? Protector Shui cried out. He stared right at the mountain in outer space as his eyes shone with a strange light. The Martial Soul Mountain. Protector Shui, what kind of organization in the Martial Soul Mountain? Are they very powerful? Protector Mei, Protector Bai, and Protector Xing all looked at Protector Shui. Although the Martial Soul Mountain was very well known in the Saints' world, not everyone knew about it. Only some ancient experts or people who were well versed with information knew about its existence. The Martial Soul Mountain. What kind of organization is that? That does sound a little familiar. It seems like I've read about it in some ancient annals. I just can't remember it. A great elder from the Four Symbols Alliance frowned and murmured to himself when he heard Protector Shui's cry. He sank into his thoughts. The Martial Soul Mountain. That represents an everlasting legacy of the Saints' world, the Martial Soul lineage. Our Four Symbols Alliance doesn't have much on the Martial Soul lineage, but the records we possess describes the Martial Soul lineage to be very incredible, a great elder said sternly from one side. He stared at the Martial Soul Mountain in outer space curiously. Very incredible. How incredible. The records dictate that they are the gods of slaughter at the same level of cultivation. They are the kings of the level of cultivation they possess. A pressure suddenly appeared in outer space as a powerful pulse of energy swept through the galaxies, causing the faces of all the Grand Primes present to harden. The colossal image condensed from the Martial Soul Mountain had finally demonstrated its might and power at that moment. The Martial Soul lineage really is reputed for a reason. Just the energy in this illusionary Martial Soul Mountain has surpassed me, Lian Wuji sighed in surprise. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, Tong Wuming, and Zhou Zhidao remained silent. However, they all stared at the Martial Soul Mountain. Clearly, they had no idea why it had come. Swish. 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 3 figures shot over from the Martial Soul Mountain. They did not give off an earth-shaking presence. They seemed more like ghosts, silently gliding through the cold, dark space. They moved extremely quickly, arriving before Jian Chen in an instant. They were Hun Zong, Chu Jian, and Yu Chao. The eyes of the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, and Lian Wuji all narrowed. They immediately became wary with the Martial Soul lineage's approach. Even though these 3 people from the Martial Soul lineage were all chaotic primes, the Grand Primes dared not be careless towards the Martial Soul lineage. 8th Junior Brother, who angered you? Tell Senior Brother so that I can bring you their head, said Hun Zong like it was no big deal. He paid no attention to the Grand Primes gathered there. As soon as they heard how he referred to Jian Chen, the Peak Lord and everyone else shuddered. They were shocked. Since the people from the Martial Soul lineage referred to Jian Chen as Junior Brother, that made him a successor of the Martial Soul lineage as well, did it not? How can Jian Chen be a part of the Martial Soul lineage? That's impossible. The Gentle Breeze ancestor was in disbelief as well. He knew a little more regarding the Martial Soul lineage than everyone else. They were a legacy known to be everlasting in the Saints' world. Even peak organizations with grand exalts could not claim that they would be everlasting because quite a few of them had been destroyed throughout history. Only the Martial Soul lineage would continue to exist. They were given birth to by the world. Even if all the successors were slain, new people would be born once again after some time. Chapter 2598, Claiming the Life of a Grand Prime Instantly. Greetings to 1st Senior Brother, 2nd Senior Brother, and 3rd Senior Brother. I came across trouble this time, so I could only trouble you, Jian Chen said with his fist clasped. His gaze paused on Yu Chao. He discovered that Yu Chao had basically recovered from his wounds from the protector swords, so he immediately stopped worrying. We're one big family, so how can you talk like we're not? Moreover, out of the 8 of us, 8th junior brother is the most outstanding. Who knows, maybe we'll have to rely on you in the future, Chu Jian laughed. He truly treated Jian Chen as family without any selfish intentions, much less deception. The Grand Primes from the Four Symbols Alliance were stern. They had never thought that Jian Chen would be a member of the martial soul lineage. Now that the martial soul mountain had come, they felt troubled. Even though the martial soul lineage had no Grand Primes, they were significant. Anyone who knew a little about the martial soul lineage would always hold some fear towards them unless they had reached a terrifying level of cultivation where they had no need to fear anything. The martial soul lineage is known to be invincible among the same level of cultivation. Their battle prowess is extremely incredible. However, they're only chaotic primes, and the difference between chaotic prime and grand prime is basically insurmountable. I refuse to believe that they can challenge grand primes as 9th heavenly layer chaotic primes. However, Guli from the Heaven-Quaking sect was not particularly wary of the martial soul lineage. He comprehended the laws of strength, making him one of the stronger experts at his level of cultivation. He took a step forward. His eyes were cold, and his killing intent was sharp. The laws of strength in the surroundings revolved around him, filling his every muscle with destructive power. He could collapse space with the slightest movement. I am Guli of the Heaven-Quaking sect, and I would like to witness the so-called martial soul force of the martial soul lineage. However, let me put it out there first. If you aren't as powerful as you are rumored to be, you can't blame me if I accidentally crush one of you with my fist. Guli sneered provokingly. Afterwards, he directly struck out. A fist tore through space with terrifying strength. It made the space there shudder and the stars shake. He did not hold back with the punch. It was filled with killing intent. You're only a Grand Prime who has comprehended the laws of strength, and you're only at the 1st heavenly layer as well. Yet, you still challenge our martial soul lineage? Chu Jian sneered in disdain. He looked at Guli, and powerful martial soul force suddenly shot out. It was invisible and broke free from the restraints of time and space. It could overcome all obstructions, and it entered Guli's soul the moment it shot out. Immediately, Guli grunted. He staggered as the terrifying power in his punch rapidly dispersed. His face immediately became utterly pale. His soul had been heavily injured. He endured a splitting pain, and it was as if his head was about to explode. He was in agony. The world spun around him. Chu Jian was one of the 3 most powerful people from the martial soul lineage. His martial soul force was extremely powerful. Regular Grand Primes really could not endure his martial soul force. You're a mere 1st heavenly layer Grand Prime, yet you're still so arrogant. Killing you is too easy. Chu Jian snorted coldly. He arrived before Guli with a flash and directly cut off Guli's head with his sword. Spurt. Blood gushed out as a head was tossed into the sky. Guli basically failed to put up any defenses at all. He had been beheaded in a single stroke by Chu Jian. Guli. Luo Mantian and He Dao cried out. They paled in fright and immediately shot over in an attempt to save him. Everything had happened far too quickly. They all failed to react in that split second, and Guli's head was cut off. It was just far too shocking, far too unbelievable. However, as long as a Grand Prime's soul remained intact, they would not be dead. Guli's head had only been cut off. His soul remained. However, his soul still had not recovered from Chu Jian's martial soul force attack. Swish! With a flash, Chu Jian struck out a second time. The sharp tip of his sword stabbed into Guli's forehead, piercing through it completely. Arg! This time, Guli finally could not help but let out a miserable wail. This was a wail from his soul. After being stabbed by Chu Jian's sword, his soul slowly dispersed. The ancestor of the heaven-quaking sect, Guli, was dead. The expressions of the Grand Primes from the Four Symbols Alliance all changed when they witnessed Guli's death. All of them stood with their eyes widened as they stared at the dead soul on Chu Jian's sword. They experienced emotional turmoil. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, and Lai Yan Wuji were completely dumbfounded. They had been petrified. That was a Grand Prime, an existence that stood at the apex of a plane. He could make the entire cloud plane tremble with just a stamp of his feet, yet he had just died like that. They struggled to believe it. At this moment, another two grunts rang out. They came from Luo Mantian and He Dao. The two of them wanted to save Guli. However, not only did they fail, they even froze up halfway. Their faces became ugly. Hun Zong and Yu Chao attacked. They used martial soul force to injure their souls. Afterwards, Hun Zong and Yu Chao flashed towards Luo Mantian and He Dao at the same time. They had completely understood the situation of the cloud plane through their short conversation with Jian Chen. They knew who the enemies were. What are you staring for? Hurry up and stop them. Gong Ji called out and took the initiative to provide support. They had already lost Guli, Luo Mantian and He Dao definitely could not die, or the Four Symbols Alliance would completely lose the advantage they had gained after so much difficulty. And now that the martial soul lineage had appeared, they needed experts like Luo Mantian and He Dao even more if they wanted to match up to the Four Symbols Alliance. Boom! With a deafening rumble, powerful energy swept through the stars as a storm. Gong Ji had already arrived beside Luo Mantian. She clashed with Hun Zong, preventing him from killing Luo Mantian. Basically at the same time, Wu Lu arrived before He Dao in a flash and clashed with Yu Chao. He called out at the same time, "People of the martial soul lineage, Jian Chen has offended the young Star Lord. He is someone that the young Star Lord wants dead. If you protect Jian Chen, that will be opposing the Star Brilliance Plane and the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. You need to think about the consequences. Ha 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 ha, even if we had to oppose Grand Exalts and the entire Saints world, so what? Let alone the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. Our martial soul lineage does not fear death," Chu Jian laughed fearlessly. "Young Star Lord, we need to retreat." The two 9th Heavenly Layer Chaotic Prime Great Elders from the Four Symbols Alliance were stern. They stood in front of the young Star Lord, protecting him as he backed away. Weaker Chaotic Primes could not endure the shockwaves from battles between experts of such a level. The young Star Lord would have died long ago as a God King if he did not have the protection of the two 9th Heavenly Layer Chaotic Primes. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.